And we're back.
Hey, and we're back.
And we're back again, dude. This is Spine Crackers, the podcast show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know him, you love him. That was Gabe, of course.
That was good.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Paul.
I'm recording for my brand new. If you follow any of our social medias, you know that I moved this week, and so I'm in my new sick ass professional podcaster studio room.
That's right.
Which is why it's
freshly renovated, soundproofed.
It's not soundproof.
Yeah, Gabe's like, you've actually got a very good like plate reverb going on or something. That was good.
Thank you.
That was good.
Classically trained singer, bitch.
That's actually that's not true, but it's not fully untrue.
What do you mean? No, I am.
You're a classically trained singer?
You were in like Corlears.
I took private voice lessons, motherfucker.
Did you really?
Did you?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
It was with Mr. V.
Right.
Wow.
And I was in the uber elite fucking acapella group with all those motherfuckers.
Damn. Did you ever do a solo for your acapella group?
Hell yeah, I did.
Which one? I'll tell you my crowning achievement when I did college level acapella.
Ooh.
Wow. You guys are freaking cool.
What was the?
Yeah.
It was a Christmas song.
Because you were bass, right? I'm assuming.
I was baritone.
Baritone.
Yeah. I forget
Is
what
that like
song.
one
It was a
of
Christmas
bass?
song though. Huh?
Is bass lowest?
Bass is the lowest. Yeah.
Yeah.
The beat is up, simply having.
What? No, it wasn't that one. That's too high.
Was it Jingle Bells?
No.
Chestnuts.
It might have been that.
You were more in like a why can't I remember his name? Who's that motherfucker who sings that?
Johnny Mathis.
Frank Sinatra?
No.
Who's saying?
Danny DeVito?
Are you talking about? I mean, everyone has fucking sang that song.
True. The I don't know. Maybe this is just now me talking about my family's record collection.
Your personal nostalgia of who sang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
We were Johnny Mathis.
There was the
in my household.
I think I know what you're talking about, Matt. Like there was that fucking album by that guy. He was like a TV. No. He was like a TV host or something, and he released a Christmas album. Andy Williams.
Hold on. Roasting.
Yeah, I think you're probably thinking of Andy Williams.
Now I'm thinking of somebody super obvious that I just suck at.
Okay.
Anyway, Nat King
Justin
Cole.
Timberlake.
Thank God, dude.
Oh,
Nat King Cole.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway.
We did it.
So
I was
you know
thinking
mine.
of
You
Andy
know what?
Williams.
You know what mine was?
What? You had a solo?
Yeah.
Mine was better.
Well, we'll let the
We should
audience
have
decide, and
we
you can
should
take a
have
poll
a, that's
afterwards.
Patreon content, dude.
Patreon only. We'll have an acapella
Solo
battle.
off.
We have to sing. Paul is listening. That's it. He's the only judge.
I'm just hitting a badminton birdie in the background by myself.
Just hitting a jewel, looking at us like just pissed.
What was yours, Matt?
Oops, all Simon Cowell's. Mine was "In Your Eyes" by Peter Gabriel.
That's like one of your favorite songs in general.
And it's
isn't
one
it?
of my
That must have
favorite
been
songs.
That must have been a highlight of your life.
I lobbied for it so hard. I got so nervous when I actually had to perform it that I was like throwing up in my mouth.
So what part was the solo? Like which section of the song? Or were you...
I'm saying like a cappella, so everyone did like voice instrumentation, and I got to sing the song.
Oh, you sang like the whole main.
I sang
lyrics.
the whole
oh,
ass
shit.
song.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
dude.
That's so sweet. You guys basically like won American Idol.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an a cappella. Me and Gabe are both classically trained singers. It's whatever. It's not something we.
I
fine.
played
Another
sports
yeah.
in high school. I played sports, so
Do you guys think? Do you guys think that? I was wondering, where do you think the majority of furries are in terms of veganism?
Where is this coming from?
I was thinking. I was
veganism.
just thinking. Do you just have an immediate intuitive response to like? Do you think furries mostly are vegan or not?
No, because they don't. They're not. No, I think
there's
no,
no
because I
correlation.
think they don't. I think they don't care
there's
about animal
very-
rights because they want to fuck animals.
But they also are. So
But
do
they're-
they?
They're not.
Maybe they don't eat their own kind.
Well, this is. I was thinking of like, is it like Zootopia rules, or is it like, are they carnivores? So they don't. Some of them just aren't because they are a wolf, or like, are all of them sentient?
I feel like if there are any furry podcasts out there that want to come on the show and clarify this,
Yes, please.
But I don't think furries consider themselves to be actual animals. You're talking about like fucking otherkin or some shit, which is a different, as far as I understand it, like a different category.
That's the dividing line?
I don't know. I have no fucking clue.
Interesting. Well,
We'll
we're
do our
talking about
research.
ethical dilemmas because the book we're discussing is
Smooth.
Very smooth.
Smooth.
well, this is Gabe's choice, right? So
Yes.
take it away.
So this week we're talking about Graham Greene's 1960 novel, A Burnt Out Case, which I wanted to read for a couple reasons. Nothing like super well defined, but this is only my second Graham Greene novel. I read Our Man in Havana a number of years ago, and I thought it was really funny, and I enjoyed it a lot. I know for a lot of Greene's career, he kind of like separated his output into his like serious novels, which is like this novel and The Power and the Glory and The End of the Affair and Brighton Rock and all that stuff. And then he had what he called like the entertainments, which were sort of like shorter, more comedic, sort of like pulp, almost like pulpy sort of novels. And that one, Our Man in Havana, is generally classed in that latter category. But as he aged and kept writing, Greene kind of like himself came to kind of reject that distinction and just lumped it all as like, that's my body of work, these are my novels.
Good on him.
Yeah. But which I think is interesting, and maybe this will come up at some point later, because one of my other favorite authors, Simonon, kind of did the same thing, where he wrote a bunch of these pulpy detective novels. I wouldn't call them pulpy, but a lot of these very popular like short detective novels, but also had his more serious roman dur. They're called the hard novels,
Which we're reading for next week.
Yeah, we are reading one for next week.
Oh yeah.
So come back for that. So anyway, I wanted to read it because I enjoyed Our Man in Havana, and I thought it was funny and well written. And I also just remember, I just have a very vivid memory of, as a kid, going back, I guess, a little bit to some of the discussion that we had last week about the mezzanine. But like one of the literary memories that has stuck with me was being like 6 or 7 and seeing this book on my grandfather's bookshelf and just being like, for whatever reason, just enamored with the title and like wanting to know what the fuck the book was about. And I have not gotten around to reading it until now. So
Wow.
Was it satisfying to just on that level read it?
100%, like deeply, just checking off that sort of like nostalgic box.
I've had that kind of experience too. It's super nice.
That's like a mezzanine style nostalgic
Yeah, exactly.
moment right there.
I know. It's so the delay is almost satisfying in its own right as well,
Right. It's like, edging. It's like edging edging literary satisfaction.
I'm gonna do that with the Bible forever and never
the
read it.
23-year edge.
I had the only other Graham Greene book I read was the Power and the Glory.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
In college, I think. I remember being my memory's hazy, but I know it has something. It has similar themes to this, right? Like in that one, I believe like a Catholic priest who's also English, I think, is being sort of chased out of some region in Mexico because the local like coup military government or whatever is like cracking down on Catholicism as like a sort of hostile alien presence in the culture.
Right. I forgot. I actually have read that also, but it was so long ago that I barely counted as having read it.
That was before Burnt Out Case, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's it. And there's Graham Greene's also got a bunch of like isn't Our Man in Havana or whatever a film too? Or one of them.
A bunch of his novels have been made into movies. I forget if Our Man in Havana has. I think so.
Yeah. Is it like Simenon? Is there like a guy, like a through line character that appears in multiple things?
I don't think so. Not as far as I know in terms of his entertainment novels.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think there's any sort of like recurring characters or anything like that.
Huh.
1959, Our Man in Havana.
Yeah.
Our
so that
Man
was the
in
year
Havana.
before this, which is interesting.
That's when the movie came out.
Oh, the
Yeah,
movie, okay.
this came out in 55, I think. This book, the one we're talking
I thought
about,
it was
yeah.
60.
I think it's 60, but I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
it's 60.
I've been wrong more than anyone else, so especially about dates and stuff.
But Power and the Glory was 40, so that's 20 years before this.
Yeah, it was super
You
effective.
might be thinking of The Quiet American, Matt. That was 55.
Oh man,
Which is one of his other kind of like main, like, most well-known works.
I mean, Simenon has like double his published count of books, but
still, that is
Probably more.
no slouch for Greene because Simon
Yeah.
has like 200 plus novels. So Greene wrote a lot.
Greene still wrote, for like he published a book like basically like every other year of his life, or something like that. Yeah, pretty prolific dude. So I don't know. He's one of those people. It's like if you have a completionist attitude when you want to like grapple, you have to start somewhere. But I'm also like, what did he like? Where did he go? Because he
Right,
still had so much
right.
more. He died like in the 90s or something. Like
Yep.
I don't know. So like I don't know. He had so much more developed thought to
91.
go. But this is pretty smack dab in the middle of it. So
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah. So it seems like a decent place to start in terms of Greene's. Paul, had you
This
ever
is
read
my
Green
spicy.
or heard of him?
No, I have not read any Graham Greene. This is my first one. My spicy take is I think this will be my last one too.
Not a fan.
Whoa, giving it away at the beginning, dude.
Not extreme hatred of any kind, but I just, I didn't love this book.
Yeah.
I was kind of a tad bored.
Yeah, I hear you.
There is like a theme.
Yeah, I mean,
And if you're not vibing with it, then it's over because
Right,
that's all the
facts.
book's about.
Right.
I had a weird experience where I read the book pretty quickly. I was like, I actually couldn't put it down. I wanted to know what was happening, but I was also bored reading.
It's
kind of a first.
Part of me wants to say that might be a compliment.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
But I do think, this book, which, skeletal outline of the plot, follows a sort of world famous French architect, right? Of churches mainly is how he made his sort of fame, who basically tries to bug out and just like leave and fucking go hide nowhere in the middle of nowhere.
He basically pulls a Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, he
He
basically
escapes to Africa.
I'm not going to comment on the racial politics.
The race
of
does
that
not come
comment.
into play. It's just
It's
Well,
worse
it
in this
does,
one.
going
but-
to Africa.
But yeah, exactly. Well, so it obviously takes place in sort of like the aftermath of, British the sort of
The
echoes,
moribund, right? Like, when did British colonialism fully perish and transform into just financial
I
colonialism?
mean, so never, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Western colonialism is alive and well.
When did
I
the
actually
perish
thought
perish?
I was actually sort of thinking that it was interesting to read this book this week in light of what's going on
Afghanistan?
in Afghanistan. Yeah, and the sort of not that anyone's particularly being serious about it, but the opportunity anyway to reckon with American colonial sort of influence. I thought this was an interesting read in that context because the book is doing that a lot. But so anyway, it follows this French architect who's trying to disappear essentially for various reasons. There's we can get into the details later, but for various reasons trying to disappear, and he winds up in this leper colony in the Congo or thereabouts.
It's a made-up place, right?
I think it's a made-up place, yeah.
What do they call it again? Leproserie.
Leproserie. It's like brasserie, but for
Leproserie.
lepers.
Yeah. Leproserie. It sounds so nice,
It does sound nice.
right?
I would go there.
Yeah.
So he winds up at this leper colony, which is run by the Catholic Church, and it just sort of chronicles his personal sort of various crises of faith. He's already thinks of himself as an atheist by the time he gets there, and he's no longer a Catholic. But of course, he has all these theological conversations with the priests and the lepers and the locals and all that sort of stuff, which is kind of a theme for Greene, right? Because Greene was also one of these kind of raised super Catholic, was for a long time thought of as a Catholic writer, and a lot of his novels deal with the similar sorts of themes,
You know what?
religion and crises of faith and blah blah blah.
I heard that he converted to Catholicism upon marrying his wife.
He converted to Catholicism in order to marry his wife. Yeah.
Right. So I wonder I don't know what he was raised as, though. Because it sounds
you're
like
right.
he
I
must
don't
have
know-
not
yeah,
been.
He wasn't raised Catholic, so I don't actually know what his religion was growing up, if he had any.
But he called himself an agnostic Catholic.
By the end of his life, yeah.
Yeah, which is a cool phrase. I don't know what it means. You're Unitarian. I don't know what it means.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I mean, I think that this book is definitely of a piece with Greene's kind of you're getting what Greene is about in this book. Greene is about Catholicism and sort of questions of religion in the contemporary world, individual sort of crises of faith, with a nice side portion of colonialism and anti-colonialism, and those sorts of discussions, and those two threads sort of run through a lot of his work, from what I can gather. The Power and the Glory is about both of those things.
Yeah.
Our Man in Havana is about colonialism and sort of Western interactions with their colonial subjects and all that sort of stuff, which is another reason that this book sort of intuitively appealed to me, because that's one of my, I'm a sucker for colonial era writing and books about colonialism. I think it's politically fascinating, historically fascinating, and morally fascinating. And so I'm always down for a good colonial / post-colonial narrative.
And you're secretly a Catholic priest on the side too. So
That's right. I'm ordained. No, it's not true. I have been accused in my life, like Query is in the book, of being a crypto Catholic, though, at various points.
Really?
What is that?
Well,
Secretly Catholic, but
like
sort of
yeah.
denying it up and down.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh,
But
crypto,
everything
like
you-
cryptic.
When I was getting
Yes.
my master's degree in philosophy, I had one colleague, one peer who just relentlessly accused me of being secretly religious.
Why? Just go into this for a second.
Well, it's mostly it was mostly based on like generally uninteresting minor philosophical points. So it's probably would be boring conversation.
But I mean, the conversations, I don't know. It's like, it's funny because
Basically, it comes down. Basically, long story short, it's because I believe that there's such a thing as objective morality.
got you. Okay, I get that. But I mean, that's right, because it's not irrelevant, right? Because like a lot of the times the quibbles in philosophical argumentation the schisms are as fine pointed as some of the theological ones. Or like there's a religious element to just debating. I mean, I didn't get a PhD in philosophy, so I don't know, like metaphysics.
Me either. I only got a master's degree.
Oh, right. Metaphysics is, I don't know what that just means, not physics.
it means beyond physics. It's
like the Beyond Burger.
It's about the nature of reality.
Physics.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Uber physics, thank you. Supra.
You might be thinking about metaethics.
Is that what you guys were doing?
I mean, well, if you're talking about the question of like, is morality objective or not, that would be a metaethical question.
Okay.
Ethical, okay. Do you want me to keep talking about this? Because this is going to be really boring for most
Doug,
people.
come on. This is content. Go.
The distinction is...
It's going to be a long
basic.
podcast.
I know, seriously, Jesus.
Not really, because me and Paul don't know shit about this. I feel like, sick.
So the distinction is ethics, morality is the question of what do I do day to day, right? Like how do I make my decisions, right? Was this choice correct or wrong, right? Was this morally right? Was this morally wrong? Should I have cheated on my wife? Should I have eaten meat? Should I have, whatever. Those are all moral questions, ethical questions.
Poop my pants.
Should I poop my pants? Should I fucking
In the train?
Should I?
Because it feels good just for me,
In the
yeah.
train.
Yeah.
Should I subscribe to Belle Delphine's OnlyFans? Like these are all moral questions. But meta-ethical questions are questions about the nature of the concepts right and wrong in and of themselves, right? What does it mean for something to be morally correct or morally incorrect, right? And the question of whether or not moral correctness is objective or subjective or intersubjective or something else, that's a meta-ethical question.
But these seem to be what plague Query. Is that Carrie? Query? How are we saying it?
I said query in my brain.
Like
said
the
carry.
dirty American I am, I just said query. It's probably something like Kerry.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You said
Although maybe
Carrie,
it's supposed to
Matt?
sort of sound like I said Carrie, but maybe query is like part of like a gesture towards
Because
querying.
it's a question.
I don't know, right?
Could be. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know,
Or
something like
Quaker
that.
Could be like Quaker too.
Okay.
Religion.
Religion.
But isn't this the shit that he's like sick of debating in his head based on his
Right.
his own behaviors, right? Like, it's not completely out of the blue that we're talking about
No.
this kind of thing.
No. So, but I would be very boring to query because his whole kind of thing is that he's just sick of having these conversations and he just wants to, or having these thoughts, and so he just wants to kind of live out his life and die and be buried in an unmarked grave in a leper colony.
Right. And he very specifically like the Catholic variety
Yes.
of these questions,
Right.
right? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, Greene is, like you said, he was labeled a Catholic writer, and it's because he was just like, his own personal crisis I thought Greene was kind of just sort of vaguely like inserting himself in the form of Dr. Colin, the guy who's friends with Query.
Right. Who's the sort of colony doctor who's also a self-identified atheist.
Right, he's dedicated to his wife and he's an atheist, but he's like a crypto atheist. He's like not, I don't know. He's like got the sort of inner peace that I think at least Greene maybe hoped he had or had thought maybe he had achieved in
Yeah.
opposition to someone like Query, who's like borderline suicidal.
I don't know. I actually didn't get that vibe from like Query
No, I didn't
as
get
a
a
character.
suicidal vibe.
And I think that's kind of one of the he's that which is so the burnt out case in the title is a reference to Query specifically, but also like a general term that was used by doctors at the time, I guess, or at least was used by this doctor to refer to certain patients who were just too far gone, essentially mentally, to
Right.
to bring
It's
back.
kind of like a term like hysterical woman. It's kind of an outdated
yeah,
term. Just like
Or
should
shell
probably
shock or
specify-
something.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
shell shock.
Yeah, like you should probably explore why.
Yeah. Oh, he's just burnt out.
Nah, yeah, he
a
is
burnt-out
just
case.
not feeling it anymore. He lost one too many finger or toe, and he's just not into it anymore.
But we have, we have terms like that today, right? Like we just say people are not a vibe now, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
We say that. We say that.
I mean, we don't, but people do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always going to be some sort of like dumb, uncomplicated way of describing like a deep crisis in someone's like very being, you know. But yeah, you get the lepers are a little bit used, you know, like they're just like here's all these people with like
Dramatically.
physical mutilations to contrast this man's spiritual mutilations or something, you know.
for sure.
Yeah. Dude, yeah.
Sucking a hookah.
Fucking yeah, dude,
Weed,
for sure.
marijuana
Dude.
hookah.
What if God was like this chair that I'm sitting on?
Dude, God was one of us, man.
What if God was a jewel?
Dude, I don't think
Jewel.
God is like some like guy in the clouds, but I think he's like, you know, I'm like spiritual but not religious.
God's like fucking here right now on this fucking Zoom call, dude.
Yeah.
I keep jeweling because God is my jewel cloud.
Praise be to Jah.
No. Cut that.
Not like
Strike
this.
that. Reverse it. I forgot the last point you made, Matt. Oh, the lepers versus, the way the
Just
lepers are sort of
they're
portrayed.
just sort of like a prop.
Yeah.
That was like my first kind of like not a huge problem, but just a minor jab. Like I get it, I understand that like there's these people who, aside from one character really, get just are like people that are like, oh, I don't have a nose, and when like my whole hand is gone, and like shouldn't they also but
or have elephantitis of the balls.
Yeah.
dude. Yes, I'm so glad that was brought up because, you go to Rotten.com in the bad days of the internet, and
Those
there
were
was
the good days, dude.
I mean it fondly, but
Getting
like
psychologically scarred at age 15. Great
but
days.
elephantiasis was a big part of that.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
photos of people wheelbarrowing their huge parasitically puffed out testicles around in like
Massive freaky cock.
that was that.
Sorry, everyone. That's an inside joke. And if you want to have some fun, Google that.
Dude,
That was that man's
well.
choice.
Yeah.
That guy wanted that
He did want it. He loved it, too.
Oh,
disgusting dead piece of meat he had. That's another kind of harm spiritually, I would say, despite the physical element.
I mean, to your point.
But laughing
Matt,
at that was one of my greatest nights of my life. Just laughing at that for hours. This man, massive freaky cock. Wasn't he like on a cliff and like the ocean was
He
in the
was
back?
outside
He was like
for sure,
in
yeah.
Scotland.
He was in a beautiful setting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a king.
Very
Living
weird.
his best life.
Yep.
He was.
But
right.
to your point, Matt, I mean, in terms of the lepers and the sort of like the whole, like, I mean, my take is that going in this book, you need to know this book is white as fuck. This is like one of the whitest books, despite being set in Africa and having, you know what I mean? Like, this book is very white. It's about Catholic self-hatred and crises of Catholic faith and colonialism. And like, you know, I think I would defend Greene a little bit in the sense that I think he's nuanced enough to sort of be critiquing and poking fun at the colonial project in both profound and just sort of small, funny ways, variously throughout. But you're certainly right that like none of the non-white characters are like developed at all, and even the one that is developed a little bit, who's basically Query's, you know, servant helper guy,
Deo Gratias,
doesn't even get a name. His name is just his, you know, the doctor asks him what your name, and he says thank God in French, and that's his name from now on. You know what I mean?
Although, you know,
or I don't know if that's French or Latin, but
Latin, I think.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it could be argued that it also is just yeah, I don't know, just the way it was for these people that were whose perspective we're in. I don't, you know, that's one way to wiggle out of it a little
I'm
bit.
sure it's
like
realistic, but it doesn't mean
Yeah.
I don't really like that. I mean, I was thinking of Simenon a little bit while reading this book, not because like the styles were similar, but I kept thinking Simenon would write this book like better. He would have inserted in some things that I thought were missing, and one of the major things I thought was missing was what you just said, Gabe. Like the backdrop, the environment of the story seems to be exactly that, a backdrop, like a forgotten backdrop. There's not many descriptions of the actual environment and the people, besides like, you know, the human grotesqueness of the lepers here and there. But I thought it was like almost like a missed opportunity to talk about something other than just the white people problems of the story. I think the actual plot of the story actually could have happened like in Ireland, because most of the conflict happens between a bunch of priests and Query and Marie. So yeah, I think that was like a major criticism for me. I got to the end of the book and I was just thinking like, I barely like remember this being in Africa.
Yeah, I mean, well, the first thing I'll say is that Simenon actually did write a better version of this book. It's called Tropic Moon. Yeah.
Are there lepers at all?
I don't think there's lepers, but it's a very similar sort of, you know, French guy trying to escape Europe and goes to live in colonial Africa.
Cool.
It came out 30 years before or something, in the early 30s, I think. But I was thinking about that book a lot reading this book, and yeah. But anyway, yeah, I don't think you're wrong to think about Simenon in terms of this book. But yeah.
Again, just, you know, I do think it, fair or not, it is mostly about, I do agree that Greene is like very critical of the entire situation, and like I think it is mostly about the failings of the colonial project and all of the like Anglos that are there and like Europeans that are just there in this place, having these crises in this place, and like, you know.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with Paul that the backdrop is like irrelevant at all, because Greene, I think, has politics, and I think he's not, I wouldn't say he's like a political writer per se, but like it's pretty clear that he has disdain for European colonialism.
Was he in like the fucking Foreign Legion, or he was MI6, I believe. He was straight up like spy, or he was like, you know, he was living kind of the stuff that he was writing about, I'm pretty sure. I think, yeah, he just worked for the British government. So he was in all these places. Like he went to a leprosery, saw it, and was inspired and just wrote about it. Like that's true of a bunch of stuff like Cuba.
Basically
and
like a Tom Cruise type guy.
Kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, he's Ethan Hunt.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to try to defend my position a little bit, it just comes down to the actual writing. I felt to be like uninspired and kind of like he phoned it in. I thought overall, I didn't really feel like his heart was in it in terms of the actual style and the descriptions, and it just seemed kind of bland to me. I don't know. I know he's like a famous writer, but I was really underwhelmed by how he actually writes, and it took me out of the story quite a bit. I felt like he was trying to make certain plot points and talk about certain things, but kind of breezing past how he actually did it. So,
I mean, I definitely there's in just researching a little bit more for this episode. I mean, Greene is often talked about as sort of like a writer who is, he's very straightforward in the way he writes. Like, I don't think anyone could accuse him of being flowery or like overly, verbose. And I think that the writing is definitely straightforward. There's not a lot of. I mean, I don't know. I didn't quite have the same experience. I felt like the book was actually kind of dense. It took me a little while to. I was a little slow reading it, but I definitely get where you're coming from in the sense that I think that his writing style is it's matter of fact. It's not as pared down and sparse as like some people that are writing today. Like, it's not fucking like The Road or some shit like that. But it's not ornate or anything like that. It's very kind of efficient, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. And I mean, I would even say like Murakami is that way too. He's described as being very like straightforward in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to think like, why do I like Murakami and why didn't I like Greene's writing style? And I think I really don't totally know. I guess it's kind of like a subjective point, but it just didn't really like flow right with me, and like the accents of certain passages that I thought could have had more descriptions were kind of left empty, and like I said before, just kind of like he was trying to rush through it, and that's the way it just felt to me. So it was just like, I want to get the next plot point and have my descriptions here and there, but not really like dive in maybe where I felt like he should have more. So yeah.
What was your sense of the writing style, Matt?
I found it a little bit more involved than maybe Paul experienced, but definitely that opinion comes in the realm of the dialogue as opposed to a sense of place. Like, the one, in terms of place, place setting, like, I got that it was hot. And then there were occasional weather phenomena that were evoked really well to me. But other than that, yeah. But part of my thought was that it's really no place. It's not meant to be, I don't think, the focus or whatever. Like, you get the notion. It's a leper colony. It's in Africa. It's in some sort of colonial holdover of England. It's being strung together by, the Catholic Church, and that's it. It's like, I was thinking a little bit. This might not be fair because the writing style is very different. But like, I was thinking a little bit of the Magic Mountain and how that all takes place in a sanatorium for people with tuberculosis, and the idea of like this place that is just kind of a microcosm for a cultural struggle, basically, where all the patients play like these roles as various viewpoints, but in that book it's more like stand-ins for like European relations. In this one, it's like the problem, the times that I got bored, it was more like a bit of this anxiety about one's, like, where one stands in their relation to Catholicism is not like a struggle that I personally identify with very strongly, even though I myself was raised Catholic.
Is that true?
Like,
I didn't know that.
I mean, nominally, culturally, whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
my parents weren't like church going, but like I went to church until I was about 12. I'm not confirmed, but I'm baptized. Like all that kind of stuff. And it's just sort of like been ambiently in the air amongst various family members. Now, at this point in my life, it plays very little role. I would say just sort of the guilt and the sort of behavioral stuff is what is really still there.
White people shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Irish Catholic shit.
Yeah.
So, in some ways, the book spoke to me because I very much experienced some of the quandaries and fucking shit that Greene is describing.
Yeah,
But
I think
a lot of it was like eye-rolly, like, I've heard this being debated like online by like much dumber people a ton.
You were kind of saying that earlier, Paul.
Yeah.
Before you jumped on that, or when you went to the bathroom or something.
I think it was actually before we started the podcast.
Well, we all because we all grew up in like the new atheist
the YouTube atheism,
ascendance,
dude. The YouTube atheism heyday, man.
So we were all watching
Thunderfoot and shit.
Hitchens and Dawkins and these motherfuckers come out. They were British, by the way, and
Good guess.
And like have these same kind of conversations in the 2000s.
Except where I think that the reason that didn't bother me as much is that I feel like not that it necessarily bothered you, Matt, per se, but I know, Paul, you were expressing a little trepidation about like rehashing some of this shit that to us is like, been done to death in the last 20 years. Is that, I feel like Greene he's not as interested in this book and probably in his own life in the sort of theological, philosophical conversations. He's interested in the effects of those things on subjectivities, on individual people, right? And like, how does that sort of change one's outlook, one's behavior, one's sort of orientation towards not only one's own faith, lapsed faith, or whatever, but also other people. And I feel like this book does a really good job of capturing that. And that's something that, like, obviously the YouTube atheism debates just don't give a shit about.
Yeah. I agree. I think my point before was like, it does feel a little bit done to death. And I think I was saying it before the podcast started that, like, if you were reading this and you had the similar mindset we did when we were like or teenagers or something, debating atheism in our own heads, someone in 1960 could read this book and have the Catholicism all around them constantly, and maybe be Catholic and have like a really great experience reading this book. I think that was my point. Is that like maybe it's lost a little bit of the emotional effect on later generations.
It meant something more probably then to more people.
Yeah, but I also do. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's all I had to say.
Oh, but I do agree with you, Gabe, that like it does. It's more about how these individuals and their Catholic spooks affect their personal lives, and that's like the greatest example of that probably is Riker in the book. Maybe not spoilers yet, or it doesn't matter.
It's all spoilers. Yeah, it's all spoilers, baby. Yeah.
It's all spoilers.
Riker to me, which I was calling him Commander Riker, because obviously.
Yeah, dude, of course.
I was actually really happy when I read that name because I was like, wow, I thought that was like a sci-fi name that Gene Roddenberry made up, but it's real.
No, people have it.
But Riker was
different spelling.
He was my favorite character. I hated him, but he was interesting and horrible. And there's a couple scenes in the book that were so cringe-inducing involving Riker that I was laughing out loud because they were just so awful. Like
there's just a Gatsby ending, basically.
There is a very big. I was having Gatsby flashbacks, but the scene where he's trying to get his young wife Marie to have sex with him, and he's like, it's so disgusting, and he's calling her Maui, like a baby voice, Maui.
Like
so cringy.
Yeah.
It was
like
awful.
baby want milkies, just like disgusting shit.
It was awful.
Yes, well, Riker plays a pretty important role as like the darkest, one of the dark places that your faith can take
Zealotry.
you, and zealotry, and like faux faith, and like like wielding a religion in a sort of perverted and sort of distorted way to mask the fact that you have no redeeming qualities or grace by God or anything. You're just, you're
worst.
fucking the worst.
You're a vessel
You're just
to
kind
be
of like
filled.
So
You're
Riker
just sort of like-
is, he's what, like some kind of plantation, like a palm oil plantation or something?
Yeah.
Owner.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget how he first meets Query. I think it's when Query's in Luke, which is the capital city of the province or whatever.
Well, he's Query's traveling to. Colin wanted him to get something
From
from,
the
a
city,
distant
right,
town, and it was
right.
going to take a while, and they got basically stuck due to the weather. And Luke and Query just kind of like knows that, Riker knows that Query is like famous, and is kind of like, starstruck by him and wants to befriend him.
I also think that, like, speaking of that, and then of course Riker gets in his head that, like, this is the only guy I can talk to. Oh, my stupid wife, I can't talk to her about anything.
It's so stupid
Yeah.
and weird.
and blah 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 blah. But
I
I
want
also
a friend
think
to
that,
talk to about love.
Yeah,
it's like really
yeah.
weird.
Yeah, exactly. But it's all performative, right? It's all like, oh, you're a good Catholic man, and you're but it's all in service of, like, ingratiating himself to someone who in his head is like this famous.
Here is someone who is smart enough and shares my, like, as far as I know, my Christian or Catholic values to understand and bear witness to the level that I need of my piety.
Right.
That's kind of where he's at. He's like, nothing else is doing it for him. Even all of the priests at the leprosary are like falling short because they just they're so sick of him and they don't give a shit.
Well, and also one of the things that I thought was really funny about the book, and Riker talks about this a lot, is that the priests, the people working at the leprosary, who, on paper should be, oh, these are the most selfless, like, pious people, like,
Yeah.
they're all they think about is how much it's going to cost to, like, buy more toilet paper that month. Like, it's like there's their faith and their, like, religion is like the fifth most important thing on their, like, day-to-day, like, checklist of things they have to think about. And I just thought that was really both funny and also, like, true in terms of how a place like this would probably operate.
Right. They run up against material reality.
Exactly.
And if they want to do good works, there are a number of things they're going to have to fucking figure out in material reality before they can then go into the abstractions. It's like, what's that quote? First comes eating, then comes morality, or whatever. It's like, it's the kind of that, There's one priest that doesn't like that, Father Thomas.
Yeah.
He's sad because no one's talking about, like, the state of the soul and
and he
the
has
catechism and stuff.
He has the same sort of attitude towards Query that Riker does, right? Where he's sort of like this projective screen where he can just kind of talk about whatever he wants to talk about to this guy. I mean, so much of the dialogue is so funny because they're just talking to Query about all these various philosophical questions, theological questions, just bearing their sort of, like, personal stories to him, and he's literally just, like, over and over and over again, to the point that it's comedic. Like, I don't give a shit about any of this. You're talking you're talking to the wrong guy. I don't care. And they always come back with, like, oh God, you're such an amazing example of
You're so
Christian
humble.
humility. Yeah. And he's like, no, I'm not. I don't care. Please believe
Like,
me.
you know what, Query? I see myself in you. And he's like, no, you don't. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
That was probably
Over
my
here.
that was like my favorite aspect of the whole novel.
Yeah.
Was the dude just not being able to get away from people convinced of this thing about him, his piety or his religiousness or you can take that to be a stand-in for whatever, but these people who it was a foregone conclusion for them, and so they're never avoiding the same, thinking the same things over and over, no matter what a person could do or say.
See,
I think-
the issue I had
go
with
ahead,
it,
Paul.
though, the issue I had with the general thought of Query's to go to this leper colony that is ran by Catholics, is that it's like a weird thing to me. Like he gets there and he says over like at one point that he like this is I think I could be happy here. He like spills that to Colin or something. But I just kept thinking like, what kind of weird psychological shit is going on here? Because you could go anywhere in the fucking world where there would not be Catholic people running the place where you start working. Yet you go to this leper colony and you're constantly interacting with only priests and very religious people. So I in a weird way, I almost thought it was like attention seeking.
I think that, and well, that's actually addressed in the book, right? Because towards the end, or I guess when he's talking to Marie Riker when they go, so this is just to elaborate more of the plot. Him and Marie Riker eventually wind up spending the night together in a hotel without her husband's knowledge. They don't have sex or anything. They're in separate rooms, all that stuff. But because she thinks she might be pregnant and she doesn't want him to know about it, and so they wind up and they're talking. And I think he might explain to her, or I forget if it's to somebody else, but that he wound up there basically because he just went to the airport and there were basically two options. He could either go to Tokyo or to Africa, like to the Congo. Yeah. And he was just like, I just didn't want to go to Tokyo. And so I came here. And it all, you know, and then he's always talking about throughout the rest of the book, like, I got off here because this is where the fucking boat stopped. You know what I mean? Like, the boat doesn't go any farther. You know what I mean? And I think that... Yeah. But I also think that you're right in the sense that, like, he portrays it as if it was this sort of random, I just happened to land here. But there's a conversation towards the end of the book between him and Colin, the doctor, where Colin sort of implies that, like, I feel like you're kind of like, you have some latent attraction to this, right? Where he's like, you're sort of trying a little too hard to not believe in this. You know what I mean? And I kind of think that's what you're getting at, Paul. And so I think his motivation, or the route by which he winds up at the Catholic leper colony, he is so invested in presenting it and narrativizing it as this chance kind of happening. Whereas I think what Colin is suggesting, and what was probably the truth, is that there was more to it than that. Like he sort of even subconsciously came there on purpose.
Oh my God, I'm at a leper colony. Oh my God, oops.
Oh my God, this is like so random.
Oh my God, you're a Catholic? Whoops. I used to be, now I'm not.
Well, I'm fucking not.
Does that make you mad? And then he runs away behind a bush and he's like peeking behind it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it reminds me of someone who's like 8 years old and they want to run away from home. And they're like, oh, I can run away to like Sean's house. No, I'll go to the backyard instead and play by my playground. She won't find me there.
Right.
But secretly, like, you know, and you hope that your mom is like looking out the window and looking for you, and you keep looking into the house.
Because you still want a higher authority to care for you.
Yeah.
Which is kind of...
I think that's part of the... I don't think that's I think that's part of the whole point of Greene's characterization of Query.
Yeah, I think that was the final complication was... right? Because Colin is like only a person who cares deeply about this would be this disturbed, you know, by all these questions, by this thing of like, oh my God, like if I give up this final gesture towards believing in a higher authority, do I now have nothing? Like, because I mean, the other thing we didn't really get into is like, and this also felt a little dated, but like Query's, you know, disastrous life that he's trying to escape from is, you know,
it's not really touched upon that much. It doesn't even.
He seems to just sort of. He just seems like a philanderer. Like he just sort of fucks around a lot with a lot of women, married women. One of them, I guess, commits suicide, and he is kind of convinced that he was the cause. But and his whole thing is like, at some point he's just like, I had been tricking myself that I actually loved anybody, but then at some point all that was burned away, and I realized that I never felt love once, and it was all a performance, and I actually feel nothing and don't care. I don't care, I promise.
Yeah, and he also struggles with the idea that like I can't love a woman, and I really realize I only ever loved my work. So there's another layer of like weirdness to it because like, well, he escaped his life in Europe, but he also escaped his work life too.
Well,
And
no,
that's
because
explained also.
because he's like, uh, he realized that in his head that like if he didn't love these people, that he was basically just having sex with, uh, then the love for his vocation, as he calls it, was also fake. And then that was like the final blow. Was like he had nothing supposedly,
Which
and he
seems
was
like
in
a
yet
weird
another
leap to me. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems a little. I don't know if I don't know the fully if there's some sort of like another religious idea being taken up about like vocation. Like vocation seemed like a big word.
It did. It came up like 5 or 6 times, or maybe
That I
more.
don't know if I was really picking up on the like full significance of, but it seemed almost like married to the religious idea of good works again.
Yeah, like the Irish Catholic guilt scenario also comes with that word and comes with query too. I feel like, yeah, like his escape is very, very guilt ridden. It's not simply an escape. It's like,
Well, there's the Freudian thing too, right? Of like love and work being like the two legs you sort of stand on in order to maintain some sort of balance for most people. I don't know if I'm misattributing, but like I don't know. I feel like there's
I'm familiar with that.
a number of things gestured there, but it seems like that's all it took for him to convince himself that he was now done with active public life, because he was also a celebrity, and that was like the final straw too. Was people were convinced about things about him, and he was hearing about those fake, by his consideration, reports of his own self, and maybe that was the final straw. And then you get Parkinson, who comes in representing an intrusion of that world.
Yeah, it comes shaken in.
Did I don't know if you guys talk about this while I went to the bathroom,
Parkinson's joke.
I mean, I did wonder that if Parkinson was kind of named after the degenerative disease, because that's what the book is sort of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if he was, if that was just I don't know, you know what I mean? We're talking about leprosy and degenerative diseases that and Parkinson's would be in that category. So I wondered if there was any significance to that.
I liked his inclusion.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, I thought it was funny earlier, Gabe, you said colony when referring to Colin. And I like the idea that he used Colin as a funny word too. Like, Colin works at the colony.
There's
Colin.
Leprosary,
Colin.
and then there's rosary in leprosary. That's religious.
Whoa, shit. Well, so you guys were just talking about his guilt a little bit, and maybe you touched on this when I left, but one of the things that gets brought up is that, and he never talks about it as like, this is why I left or anything, but he had a lover who killed herself, basically.
Yeah.
we
right?
brought
Oh,
that
you
up.
did? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was also just kind of like, what do you guys think? Like, he just seemed like kind of like a philanderer. And I was just saying it felt a slightly dated, like that would be the disillusioning, just a string of like loveless affairs, and then I guess I don't know. That's actually pretty heavy, but
It's in that sense.
yeah, maybe I'm an asshole. That's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
It sucks.
I kind of thought he was just basically like, if Welbeck could write good characters, he would write somebody like this.
I had Hwelbeck. I was thinking of that too. I was thinking like, this is
It's just good.
Yeah,
Hwelbeck.
he seemed like a Hwelbeck character, but better written.
I was
thinking he was
contending with it.
Yeah.
Sex addict, architect, Joker.
Oh yeah.
Of course.
Check the memes for when this episode drops, because it's gonna be Joker based.
Yeah, definitely Joker based.
And based in the cool red pill way we all know.
Exactly. Dude, I'm fucking based in query pilled.
Query filled for sure. Burnt out case.
Burnt out Joker. I mean, I think yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Oh no, just one other thing that I'm just randomly throwing out there was I was thinking about Saint Augustine, right? Like one of I think he's even referenced in the book.
Many of the saints are, yeah.
Famously,
Saint Christopher.
famously, a fuck boy,
Sex addict.
sex
I didn't
addict,
know that. Yeah.
saint. Before he, that's what his like Confessions is all about, and yeah, that precipitated
That book is corny as fuck, dude.
truly, and it precipitated like his conversion.
I'm horny.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
Nodules.
No, yeah.
So I don't know. I was also just thinking about that just ambiently. Like, is he supposed to kind of be evoking that a little bit? Like he's not converted, but it's also Query dies, and that's a martyr act and sort of a saintly. He has a sort of saintly mind. He's regarded by everyone else as weirdly enlightened, even the priests, and I don't know. So I was just getting that.
Well, I think that like this is kind of what I was going to say earlier, like just before you is that I also think one of the low key, not low key, but one of the other major themes of the book, aside from sort of colonialism and crises of faith and religion and all that, is just fame.
Yeah, celebrity.
And celebrity.
Yeah.
And like the way that celebrity both changes the individual person, but the way that other people interact with celebrity, right? Because Query becomes, for Riker, for Thomas, for Marie, for a lot of the other characters in this book, this kind of like projector screen against which they can sort of like put all of their own shit, and whatever he gives back to them, no matter how vociferously, he's like, that's fucking totally wrong, dude. I don't give a shit about what you're saying, and I'm not like that. I'm not like what you're saying I am. They just don't believe him, or they find a way to be like, oh, you're just being humble, or, oh, that's a saintly thing to say or do or whatever. And he just becomes this cipher for all of their own shit, which is how fame works today.
Totally. Yeah, and like the view of Query changes pretty quickly, because when you first are introduced to him in the beginning, I think it's from like Colin's point of view, and he's talking to Thomas or somebody, and they're just like, who the hell is this guy? He's just like, they actually think he could be a, what do they call it? Like someone who's sympathetic and like basically wants to be a leper. They were those types of people. They thought
basically leprophiles.
Basically,
bug chasers.
Bug chasers.
Jesus.
But I forget exactly when they find out that he could be this famous architect. But as soon as it happens, his status in their heads are just, it's totally amplified, and he's suddenly just like, ooh, what? Like, why is he gracing us with his presence down here? And he can't, like, even though he's saying and denying all this stuff about his faith, he must be our like weird leprosy colony savior.
But it's also super brittle, right? Like all people's images of fame, because as soon as Riker's wife shows up falsely claiming that the baby that she's pregnant with is Query's, everybody flips instantly, right? Which is the same thing, not everybody, but Thomas and a number of other people. Which is the same thing you see with modern day fame. It's like, oh, you idolize someone, and then they send one fucking cringe tweet, and you're like, oh god, can't it's cancel culture, basically. Cancel culture.
Well,
Query was canceled.
He was canceled at the Leprosary.
Well, and like the religious groups were the original cancel culture people, because they like the end was basically a witch hunt, and that reminded me of witch hunts, which are very cancel-y.
I mean, I actually think it wasn't.
Totally.
Most of the priests, though, were portrayed, I thought, as being pretty reasonable. They're like, dude, everyone chill the fuck out, go to sleep. We'll talk about it in the morning.
Yeah.
Like the only one who was really pissed was Thomas, which makes sense because Thomas had invested the most of himself in his image of Query. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Thomas was the one who cared the most about Query being the person he wanted him to be. And when that image got cracked even a little bit, he fucking flips and cancels his ass.
Yeah, the people that wanted thought ill of Query were in the prior part of the book always it's Thomas and Riker. Probably the two, aside from Parkinson, who has his own, as Query even said, redemptive quality, just in the sense that he's straightforward about his degeneracy. The other two are the critical sort of like, here's what could go wrong kind of figures, right? It's like, here's how this shit can just sour in you in these different ways. Riker, Thomas is like a coward and like just curious. What would you say Thomas's like big problem is? Like, he's just sort of like overly interested in the theological to avoid like
Thomas,
the harsh realities of like just conducting your life. And
I think it's that. I also think Thomas would be like a Destiny fan today. Like, I think Thomas would watch Destiny videos.
brutal.
I don't totally get that reference, but I'm laughing anyway. It's funny to me. I don't know why.
Like, just like YouTube debate bro, who's just like, attaches himself to this famous person and invests so much of his own kind of like, oh my God, this guy gets me. This guy's like saying what I think. And
I love the idea of Thomas being like, yo, Query, yes, dude, you deny it, but like I can tell you're part of this. And Query's like, no. And then Thomas is just like, dude, that's copium.
Dude, that's literally what all that's the way
Cope
people
and Steve,
respond
bro,
to
you're
Query.
Catholic.
That's
I
the
feel like
way
Thomas
people
would,
everyone thinks
he would
Query is
run-
just coping.
I feel like Thomas would run a like if he was alive now, he would run an Elizabeth Olsen Twitter fan account, which there are plenty of.
Why?
And I hate
Why?
them. I don't know. I just feel like he is the type of person that's just like fascinated by the celebrity.
Yeah.
And would do something disgusting and gross like that.
Yeah, there's
He
a movie
definitely
called
is.
Antiviral by Cronenberg's son, about a guy who
Cronenberg
infects
Jr.
himself with a celebrity's disease because that's how much they're obsessed with them.
Dude, it sounds right.
So that ties into this stuff a little bit. Meanwhile, Riker is just like,
David Cronenberg?
huh?
Is that his name?
It's his son, so it's
I
just
know.
Cronenberg.
I was saying Throw, number 2. David Tunenberg.
Throw?
Never mind.
Is that
Never mind. Sorry.
damn?
cut
Am
that
I
one out.
dumb? No, you can
No,
leave it all in.
No, just pass over it in silence.
We have never cut anything
Wittgenstein.
out. We always we never have.
We've
I think
bleeped
we
a couple.
bleeped a couple words.
Oh, we
Yeah.
have?
Yeah.
We
Was
have.
I bleeped?
Yes.
I think you and Matt were.
I was.
One
yeah,
episode.
in one episode we were
Wow.
both bleeped. Trying to keep it clean, trying to keep it nice.
I'm gonna say all the words that I think I could have said. Right?
just a fucking George Carlin. But I'm just trying to compare Thomas's like sort of symbolic role to that of Riker. Like, what is the difference there? I mean, I think I don't know exactly, but I just want to know what you guys' thoughts. Like, what are Riker's problems that differ from Thomas's?
I mean, Riker has a lot of issues with how he sees women and what it's like to be a Catholic in a marriage that Thomas can't compete with. But I would say they're on the same team. I think if their roles were reversed, Thomas might have similar views.
In it for the
Not
clout.
reversed, but
I think like the way I see the difference between Riker and Father Thomas is that I think Riker likes Query's celebrity because he wants to find a way, which is why he searches for all these connections. Like, oh, we're both men of faith. We're both, wealthy, famous people in a colony. Like, he tries to find ways to connect to Query because I think Riker is more interested in finding ways to sort of be like, oh, I am like a celebrity. I am like one of these famous people, right? Like and Thomas, on the other hand, is more concerned with kind of projective idealization. Like he wants to create an image of this person that he aspires to. Like this person is better than me and I want to be like them. And so Riker, I think, is more concerned with like elevating himself to this person's level. It's like the fucking, gossip magazines always have a section like celebrities, they're just like us. And right. I think Riker wants that experience with an actual celebrity that he meets. And I think Thomas is more concerned with like using the form of celebrity as a sort of like goal setting device. Like he's a simp. He's a simp, basically. Like,
yeah.
I want to be like this person. I want to worship this person, etc.
He's a pervert.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Riker is probably the most detestable, and he's the one that ultimately kills.
Riker is the worst.
Query, like he's just like everything
Riker
he thinks
is one.
Incorrect and bad, and he
joke.
Riker's number what? Number one.
Riker's number one.
He was number two.
Bad.
He was number two for a while, right?
Riker to me was one of the most viscerally disgusting characters that I've ever read in literature.
Yeah.
Like I hated him so much.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he's just a fucking weirdo. I think he represents like something that again, he gets the most play and so I just see him as like the more important cautionary figure in the book. And because he went to seminary school or something, right? Like he was like in school for some sort of maybe like priestly position or
right.
And that's something he never lets anyone forget. And so he's obsessed with this little badge of honor that he has over other people. But every actual priest and even fucking Thomas is like, we know you're not the real deal, dude. We know you're just like obsessed with the like bonus points you got for knowing like the theology like verbatim to like spew at people for your just like fucking weird perverted ends where you justify like marital rape and slavery and shit. It's like
yeah, exactly. But that is it for Riker, right? It's the surface thing, and like all of those scenes, which there's two or three, but like, and I never thought they were gratuitous to the point of being like distasteful. But like you said, Paul, like that scene when Riker's drunk, and all the scenes where Riker basically, rapes his wife, basically, but it's always in the name of Christian love and like this is a real Christian marriage, and oh god, it's just so bad.
It's very, very bad. I mean, there's one rape scene. I think it's the scene where he calls Marie Moe, and he's like,
after the
come to bed
cocktail party.
I think it's from her point of view, and she like glances in the room, and he's naked, sprawled out on the bed, and I forget the description she uses for his body, but it was such a weird moment because
I think she calls it a half-filled sack.
Yeah. Oh, it was disgusting. And I was also thinking, like, what is this freaking weirdo just laying on his bed naked, like staring up at the ceiling? Like, he just creeped me the fuck out. It was an awful human being.
And of course, Marie is a really interesting character because it's ultimately sort of her response to that trauma of being married too early to a fucking psycho monster like Riker that leads her to do what she does in the end, which is lie about who the father of her baby is and saying that it's Query, because she in another sort of way has this attraction to Query as this kind of famous character, and as an individual person they have some moments of kind of warmth or whatever, but it's never sexual, it's never romantic or whatever. And so I think, her kind of trauma with Riker is also really interesting because she, speaking of throwbacks to Killing Commendatore, she basically gets it in her head that on the night that she was impregnated, she was thinking about Query instead of her husband.
Yeah.
And that therefore, in some meaningful way, the baby is Query's and not Riker's.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a little bit of a difference there because it's less of like in Killing Commendatore, it's
Actual
a
ghost
weird
rape.
dream. Yeah, it's like was there a weird
It's way more Anna Nicole
formation
Smith.
of a body? Yeah. Ghostbusters 1. With Marie, it's more like I read that as like you are suddenly incredibly insane and delusional and a liar and
Well, she
I don't know,
is,
It's
but
because
it's
she's
like a lie
she's
she's
so
telling herself.
traumatized by Riker. Like she's,
Yeah, but you're right, but I think some of her true colors come out in the last few pages too. She turns out to be like kind of a bad person, and it's not solely from trauma. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't
how
know
to
if
judge
she's a
that.
bad person. I mean, because even Query's like, he says to Riker or something right at the end before Riker kills him. He's like, I'd call her a liar if I thought she knew what lying was. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, I mean, she's extremely naive. I don't think we actually get an age.
No.
For her,
we don't get a
right?
number, but she's too young is the implication.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking might be like 15.
Yeah, I was thinking like 15, 16.
When the book first started, I thought, I was thinking like early 20s or something, but by the end I was like, yeah, she's like really fucking young. Way younger than I thought.
Yeah, she's what they called a colon, right?
Right.
Which is a funny passage to read.
Where like she was kind of like married off for just probably like old school pragmatic, just like money reasons or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not clear if Marie's like manipulative. I would side more on Query's assessment, where she's just delusional via just desperation and trauma.
And
where
traumatized, yeah, exactly.
And I think that also falls in line more with some of the themes overall too, of like at one, the ways you can see she still kind of has it together though, and so it's left vague as like she's like, what does it matter? She kind of says that, which means she does have some sort of awareness, but I think that is the fundamental pain of like a lot like Query himself in a different context, but like in general is like if my husband thinks this is fucking true and I want this to be true more than the reality or whatever reality means to her, then fucking what does it matter? Like I don't care.
I really liked
a
that
big
line.
theme.
Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, I think that question is a big theme of the novel in general. I mean, there's a scene early on where Query is talking to Colin about how he just Colin figures out that he's a architect and a builder, and he can help build this new hospital for them that would be awesome, and he wants them to do it. And Query goes through like a line or a passage about how he just doesn't want to do it anymore, and he spills his guts about why he left his life and whatever in Europe. And there's a funny line where Collins just basically says, "Who cares?"
Yes.
and Query he stops talking and kind of ruminates on it for a couple days.
And that refrain
that was actually exactly what I was going to bring up, Paul, because I think that's part of that. I kind of just want to read that passage because.
Go for it. Yeah.
He's trying to figure out how to tell Colin he doesn't want to help build the new hospital that they're basically asking him to do. They find out he's an architect and they're like, "Can you just help us fucking do this?" And he's like, "No, I don't give a shit. Like, fuck you." And Colin's like, and Colin's like, "Do it." And he's like, "No." And he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna write you a letter about why I don't want to do it."
It's so lame.
It's very cringe. And
cringe.
And of course, Colin's response is just Giga Chad. So this is after Query finishes writing the letter. He tore the pages out and sent them to Dio Gracias to Dr. Colin. At the end of a half sentence had been thrust out into the void. "I will do anything for you in reason, but don't ask me to try to revive. like a plank from a ship's deck off which a victim had been thrust. Dr. Collin came to his room later and tossed the letter crumpled into a paper ball on his table. Scruples, the doctor said impatiently, just scruples. I tried to explain, who cares, the doctor said, and that question, who cares, went echoing obsessively on in Query's brain like a line of verse learnt in adolescence. And I just think, like, that's, again, one of the themes of the whole book. Like you said, Paul, and it echoes back in Marie's kind of, it's almost like postmodern, like, what do you mean? And this is something that Parkinson says too. Like, whose truth? What reality? Like, what are you? Because Query gets mad that Parkinson's not writing the truth about him, and he's like, what does truth mean? And when Marie comes back at the end and is like, look, man, what does it matter? What does it matter if this is what people believe? And Query is so kind of fixated on the capital T truth that he never really gets that, like. He never really gets the point of that, right? The sort of who cares, the what does it matter?
Yeah, and I think that question is interesting too, because those are things that he's been saying to himself and probably has been saying to himself for years, like who cares? So why did Colin saying that to him in a different context, like, kind of rattle him so much? And I think, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
No, that's perfect, because I was just thinking about how that question, who cares, can just mean so many. It just completely changes its resonance depending on what you're saying. It's like, who cares? That can be nihilistic and like, I'm not helping. But then someone's like, why aren't you helping? It's like, well, I don't, because it doesn't matter. And then you can just say, who cares again? And then it's
Right.
like, so shut up and do it. And like, and I that is the ping ponging that is happening a lot, I think, with Query.
And I also think it goes to show that Query's own brand of nihilism is, and I think Colin kind of gets this. Like at the end, that conversation, it's like, dude, you're trying way too hard to like be a nihilist. Is that it's performative, because if he really took seriously that none of this matters, nobody cares, then he wouldn't really give a shit that Parkinson wrote falsehoods about him, or the way he was portrayed in Parkinson's articles, or that Marie lies to the priests that it's his baby. Like his nihilism, only goes as far as when it bugs him, basically. You know what I mean? Like it's
it's selective.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's very performative, and that's why I think that like Riker comes across as a very childlike character. But so does Query. Query is, he's the type of person that thinks that he has all the answers. And I think that adds a little bit to the idea that he knows he's famous, and that adds to his psychology. But, I mean, him being so glib and flippant with people and just being an asshole all the time, but really not knowing at all what he's doing and kind of just being whiny. He's very much like a little child, who thinks he has all the answers and made the right choice escaping, but he doesn't really have any control or any idea of exactly what his psychology is.
Yeah, I think, Gabe, you were talking about, more of this in the 50s, probably like pseudo deconstructionist, almost menace coming for Query's conception of things and reality,
right?
that he's not ready to contend with, because he's still contending with basically the idea of like, without God, everything is permitted, and what does that mean? But at the same time, I think the book is still concerned with a truth of some kind, right? Like, the people that, like Query and maybe Colin and these people are conflicted and experiencing some sort of like pain because of these questions being raised, but there are also genuine agents of evil, like Parkinson, who, even though Parkinson does raise like challenging questions, like whose truth, what do you mean, like it's still there's this little phrase here when Parkinson was he's listening to Query and Father Thomas have a discussion, and there's this little description of Father Parkinson. He says Parkinson was watching the discussion closely. His eyes traveled from one face to another. Here and there, a word must have meant something to him, and he drew his rapid, agile, erroneous conclusions.
Because
So,
Parkinson's English and all the priests are French.
Yeah, French and Flemish and some other stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Like I to just bring Greene into it a little bit. I think his concerns are those a little bit of like obviously of like Queries and Collins, like. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's more of a Catholic book, like they were saying. Like it's still, I think, lands on this ambiguous note that they're still on the right path, even if there are a lot of like hard questions to be asked about the validity.
Right.
I want to go back to the who cares line because I lost my thought and I remember it now, or at least I think I did. But I mean, I think the question hits Query so hard is because he's confronted with this situation where all the cards, everything's lining up to where he should be helping and making this hospital because he's been looking for a task to do at the leprosery, and they can't really find anything for him to do. I mean, he's like, you could pick these, like, I don't know, sandbags up or carry him over there. Like, what? Like, you can't really do much.
Right.
And then they figure out, oh, you have like the skills to make this hospital, and that's really a huge thing that could help us out. So he gets confronted with this, and he doesn't know how to say no because, like, he's faced with his own nihilism suddenly. He's like, if I really didn't care, then I would refuse and not have an issue with it. But he does have an issue with refusing. So I think that's what I was trying to say earlier.
Yeah, he's very... He doesn't even know how to deal with his own feelings of being conflicted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
However, you drew a butt in the book?
I circled the word colon and I drew a butthole on my...
That's good, man.
Fuck yeah.
Colin Powell.
I should have drawn
Dude, colon bowel.
Bow. Hell yeah.
There it is.
It was so close and I didn't get it.
You alley-ooped me. That was an alley-oop.
Thanks. Yeah, I think what you start to see is more of like some sort of hard-earned pragmatism with Catholic or at least Christian characteristics by the end, being sort of what I would regard as the like promising. I mean, the book is dark. Like Query is fucking shot.
Yeah.
On once again just people spreading essentially falsehoods about him, that he is too Joker-fied to fight strenuously enough. He just sort of laughs and then he gets blown away for it.
Yeah, that was so Joker.
Yeah.
It was
that was Joker. Joaquin Phoenix.
Architect Joker.
And then as he's dying, when Riker shoots him for thinking that he fucked his wife, he's like, his last words are basically like, I wasn't laughing at him, I was laughing at myself.
Yeah.
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 Isn't there also like a line about, like, there's a mention of Shakespeare, and then there's a line mentioning comedy, meaning like the Shakespearean comedy, which also made me think of like Joker. It's like, what is the line in the movie where he's like, I thought my life was a tragedy,
but then I realized a comedy.
No, dude, that's what it is. Holy shit.
I know.
Yeah.
I was thinking of
Joker-fied?
the cartoon animated movie Batman Mask of the Phantasm, where at the end Joker is just
movie.
getting his ass beat and he's just laughing.
Yes, so good.
Tyler Durden also does that, Joker.
No,
Oh,
we don't do Fight Club
we
on
don't
this
talk
show.
about that. We don't do Palanwick talk.
We don't talk about that because you're not supposed to talk about Fight Club?
Yeah, that's it. Fuck.
Fuck, dude. That's so good. Fuck you.
Damn it. We got Matt. We got.
Damn. We got done. I like, yeah, he, fuck, yeah. So I don't know what to take away from it because like you know, he's still. They set up that moment pretty way in the beginning with like this man loves fucking married women.
Yes.
They're pretty
Yeah.
clear about that at the beginning, which you know is supposed to be this sort of reputational thing that like allows Riker to draw his own conclusions, and then there's supposed to be this like, can people, is he changed? Is he, you know, who believes he is and who believes he's not?
Or not even
maybe.
has he changed, but just like in this instance, did he do the thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, you know, like you said, Marie kind of like writes a cryptic and semi-incriminating diary entry, which is just vague enough.
Right. Spent the night with Query.
Q. Hung
With
out with
Q.
Q. And she put an exclamation
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is also a Star Trek reference.
Q.
How Q? Oh my god, bro.
Sorry.
What did I write here? Oh, I just
Derailing everything.
no, I just I had a little passage.
Also, so
That's true. Also, data, and some people didn't have all the data about, you know, the situations.
About about Query.
So they shot him.
Oh my God. These priests are so enterprising, building this colony.
Oh man.
Ferengi.
Oh my God.
Fuck.
All right, Matt. You got something?
Do I got this?
Go off, King.
Okay. I highlighted this, and I don't know why, so I'm just going to read it blind. But it was something about Claire is talking to, I think, the superior, the father superior.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, he's sort of critiquing the superior for describing the somewhat newly dominant notion of progressiveness, like progress, like the progress sort of dogma, and that a lot of what he was saying sounded just kind of like that. And then he said, the priest says, the 19th century wasn't as far wrong as we like to believe. We have become cynical about progress because of the terrible things we have seen men do during the last 40 years. All the same, through trial and error, the amoeba did become the ape. Or no, this was Colin. There were blind starts and wrong turnings even then, I suppose. Evolution today can produce Hitlers as well as St. John of the Cross. I have a small hope, that's all, a very small hope, that someone they call Christ was the fertile element, looking for a crack in the wall to plant its seed. I think of Christ as an amoeba who took the right turning. I want to be on the side of the progress which survives. I'm no friend of pterodactyls. So that's
so good.
That is Colin's sort of like pseudo concession to Christianity being the most sort of like Darwinianly apt to survive of
Right.
all. Super interesting. Like I feel like that is certainly along the lines of agnostic Catholicism or whatever. You know what I mean? Like feels like one of those things where you're trying to like, and they talk about Aquinas and stuff and like the Summa Theologica and like all these attempts to that happened way earlier to try and like make these religious sentiments comport with like rationality and like a new sort of scientific outlook.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought all that stuff was pretty interesting.
I thought it was too, and one of the other passages that I highlighted was a one that kind of resonated with that passage, Matt, because this is Query talking to the superior, and he kind of harkens back. I think that's early on in the book, that passage that you read, right? More or less.
No, that's sort of the back half.
Oh, okay. So I guess this is maybe prefiguring that discussion because Query talking to the superior is talking about this word that he hears from the native, the Africans, pendele, which I think we should talk about. Like that word comes up a ton in the book, and like what it means and what the significance of it is, because one of the sort of precipitating events is Query goes out into the jungle to save his kind of servant leper, and I think that that's also a sort of commentary, or sort of not a commentary, but resonates with conceptions of fame, in the sense that that's the thing that sort of like gets people thinking about Query, and it sort of becomes news. And like I was sort of thinking about people who jump in front of the subway to save a kid, and then these like flashpoints of fame, and
Yes.
Query going out and sort of like finding his leper servant person, kind of reminded me of those kind of events today. But anyway, so, and when he's out there with him in the jungle, the guy uses this word, pendele or something, and it kind of obsesses Query for the rest of the book. And he's like, what does that mean? Does it mean, is that where he was going? Is it home? Is it...
Yeah.
He's sort of concerned with that. And so anyway, so he's talking, and I think we should come back to that. But anyway, so he's talking to the Superior, and the Superior asks him, what's pendele? I don't know. A dance at a friend's house, a young man with a shiny, simple face, going to mass on Sunday with the family, falling asleep in a single bed, perhaps. People have to grow up. We are called to more complicated things than that. Are we? When we are a child, we think like a child. I can't match quotations from the Bible with you, Father, but surely there's also something about having to be as little children if we are to inherit. We've grown up rather badly. The complications have become too complex. We should have stopped with the amoeba. No, long before that, with the silicates. If your God wanted an adult world, he should have given us an adult brain.
Yeah, I underlined this passage too.
Yeah. And I just think that it resonates with that later comment by Colin about kind of like, it's a counterpoint, right? Like the evolutionary role of religion and these various kind of like faith traditions and what they tell us about kind of like, the state and this kind of role of humanity and the human kind of subject.
And we were reading these books that took place, again, I think it's pretty fun, like the 20th century being such this like watershed. I mean, like we read all this stuff in the 20s, like Dalloway and shit, and then like knowing what was coming, and then this is after.
And I feel like you really get that sense, like the aftermath of that shit.
The people are tired. People are burnt out.
Burnt out, yeah.
They don't know what the fuck to do. There's too much information. Like,
is the burnt out case just society? Is it just humanity?
Joker.
We live in a society.
We live in a burnt out case.
I'd say the U.S. feels pretty burnt out to me. We got like, speaking of like we were saying at the top, Afghanistan and shit. Like we got our own sort of, forever war colonial projects that we're desperately trying to cling to, and no one in country is particularly like happy, regardless of what they say, I would say.
And it's
I don't know.
But now like it's one of those things that serves the same role as some of these older colonial enterprises, and even arguably religion, I think, is part of what Greene's getting at. It's like these things that serve as meaning givers. You know what I mean? It's like things that give what we do on a day-to-day basis meaning. It's like, we're doing good. We're doing the right thing in Afghanistan, or we're doing the right thing in Africa. We're helping these people.
I helped the people of Afghanistan. Did you?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That guy.
Right. Exactly. And I do think that's part of Greene's point.
That's even brought up explicitly too, because again, I wish I could remember these people. I think it's the Superior again, or maybe it's Dr. Colin, because he's the one who's the most talkative with Query. But like, he's like, we don't have these like morbid professions anymore, but these things that are not what most people want to do, but that are are capable of making people feel like they're doing an unequivocal good, even if they are, say, in a colonial setting or in some sort of illegitimate sovereignty over an invaded people or something like that. It's like this kind of shit is the stuff that still you're like, I am curing somebody, and he's almost lamenting this cure that they're perfecting, because it means that at some point the whole boondoggle of the leprosery and developing a hospital and having the dynamos that the priests have to power with like a bicycle and shit, all that shit is going to be irrelevant. And he's like darkly musing.
Or at the very least, maybe worth it.
Maybe worth it?
Yeah, like it's like we're embroiled in all of this terrible shit, but like there's a thing that we used to be able to point to and say like we did the thing, we helped a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we helped Afghanistan, we won. Okay.
But he's right. Sad because there is a cure. That's the dark side to what he's saying, is like he doesn't want to actually achieve the goal because
Does
selfishly. I don't know if it's Colin. I think it might be Colin.
No, it is Colin, but he's referencing some other people that he knew, other nurses.
Yeah, like people that like go down there because they have that whatever nurse mentality, and they like to help people, and it becomes a detriment because once the problem is gone, they don't feel like they have a purpose.
Yeah, which they literally wouldn't, because they've served it, you know, and that's a horrifying thought, I think, to a lot of people, and that's something that like civilizationally was certainly probably like not just with like the church, but just like, you know, the colonial outposts and just the whole fucking massive operation going on to like service all these things and maintain this sense that everything is needed and national meaning. It's going away.
And it may have never been like justified in the first place, right? Like it may have never even been worth it from the beginning, which is like, I think, you know, again, I can't help thinking about Afghanistan right now. It's like you see all these people who are like, oh, we should have stayed. Like, why are, you know, you fucked up leaving or whatever. But it's like, I think that is born out of that same kind of orientation, which is like, if we leave and this is just over, then like my sense of the meaning that it gave me goes with it, right? Because there was a point, we were doing something good, quote unquote, or trying to do something good or whatever. And the admission that it was kind of all either for nothing and or born of like something terrible in the first place is just hard to stomach.
Yeah. There's also just a gross sunk cost fallacy going on of just like $1 trillion. Yeah, holy shit.
Right. It's like four.
Yeah, I watched the Biden speech, and he was
everyone
spent $4 trillion.
Everyone could have gone to college for free, and we could all have health care just based on the war in Afghanistan.
That Biden speech was
not even counting Iraq.
Dog, that shit sucked so bad. I can't believe
so
that guy's president.
Biden was like, I went there. I met with the Afghans. We can't do shit about that. Like that was a bad impression.
Listen, but, I hate Biden, but I actually thought the speech was kind of Chad. Because
it was kind of Chad that he was like, there's nothing we can do.
This is the only good thing he's done as president, in my view, and everybody hates him for it.
I guess, yeah. I just once again, I'm just like this man is not solid.
Oh yeah, no.
It's just like,
he's an idiot.
I'm trying to see if any of these highlighted.
So I have some passages. I kind of want to read this passage, and I partially want to read this because I want to push back a little bit on Paul's point from earlier about like environmental description and like this book being grounded in a sense of place. So this is from when Query is going out to find Dio Gracias, and this is sort of one of the events that precipitates people being interested in him being there in the first place, that he saved his leper servant who was lost in the jungle or whatever.
Yeah, very selfless, very Catholic.
Right, exactly.
What page are you on?
Well, I think we all have different editions. For me, it's 54 and 55. It's early on. It's chapter 4 of part 1, I think.
I went Kindle, which is always...
It's chapter 4 of part 2.
I'm just gonna say right now, Kindle, just reading on Kindle, almost a guaranteed just point, like decimal point at least of score down, just from the experience of reading on a Kindle. And I don't know what to do about.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Yeah.
I like reading on a Kindle.
Oh God,
On
I
an
hate
iPad.
it.
Do not.
So I'm reading out of the Penguin edition. It's okay. So he was asking. So Dio Gracias has gone missing, and he's asking someone to come with him to try to find him. If I go, will you come? The man shook his head, so Query went alone. He could not blame these people for their fears. A man had to believe in nothing if he was not afraid of the big bush at night. There was little in the forest to appeal to the romantic. It was completely empty. It had never been humanized, like the woods of Europe, with witches and charcoal burners and cottages of marzipan. No one had ever walked under these trees lamenting lost love, nor had anyone listened to the silence and communed like a lake poet with his heart. For there was no silence. If a man here wished to be heard at night, he had to raise his voice to counter the continuous chatter of the insects, as in some monstrous factory where thousands of sewing machines were being driven against time by myriads of needy seamstresses. Only for an hour or so in the midday heat, silence fell, the siesta of the insect. But if, like these Africans, one believed in some kind of divine being, wasn't it just as possible for a god to exist in this empty region as in the empty spaces of the sky where men had once located him? These woody spaces would remain unexplored, it seemed likely now, for longer than the planets. The craters of the moon were already better known than the forest at the door that one could enter any day on foot. The sharp, sour smell of chlorophyll from rotting vegetation and swamp water fell like a dentist's mask over Query's face. And I don't know if that isn't like place grounding description. I don't know what is. Like and it interweaves with a lot of the themes of the book, and it ties back to the sort of religious angle. And I don't know. I thought that was super evocative to me.
Yeah, I mean, that was I think I highlighted that passage too. There were a few here and there that I really, really enjoyed, but overall, I just didn't like how the entire book was structured. It didn't feel flowy and right, and everything. I don't know. It's a weird thing that comes up when I'm reading a lot, where if I like a writer can have a great few passages, or I can read like 4 chapters and suddenly be like, oh, I love that. But then it doesn't work for me for like 10 pages. And that's the kind of experience I had reading this. So like, yeah, that was a beautiful passage, and he has the ability to write beautiful passages. But my overall issue was like the entire flow, editing, whatever of the entire book. Something just didn't really resonate with me. And I think one of the biggest moments where it didn't was the climax at the end, when Riker is basically chasing down Query. There was absolutely no tension at all in those scenes for me. The dialogue seemed awkward. Everything just felt kind of off to me. So yeah, maybe we could possibly read some of that, but yeah, that was a big moment for me. I was like, I know this is very important, but it just felt very awkward.
I think I mean, the climax, I thought, when Riker shows up at the Leproserie to confront and then ultimately winds up killing Query. I think that was one of the moments that was like validated Greene's reputation as like a cinematic writer. Just they're all just standing out there in the fucking like jungle thunderstorm, yelling at each other in the mud, and I don't know. I'm not saying it like hit me emotionally, but it hit me visually. Like I can picture the scene in detail, and I think part of the sort of emotional point is that like this is kind of ordinary in a way. Like none of it is supposed to amount to anything, because at the end of the book, Query's buried, there's a little minor ceremony, and then Colin goes back to fucking treating lepers. you know? And it's I don't think it's supposed to be particularly like heavy or weighty. That final scene, like all of the weight is in the rest of the book. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I do understand maybe that was his intention, but I if we're talking about Simenon again, like I just feel like Simenon would direct a lot of beautiful writing and clout to that moment and make me think about humanity in a certain way and good versus evil and murder and all this stuff. Like to me that felt like a moment where you should put in that sort of thought. And I was almost laughing at the dialogue a little bit. It was like, "Oh, I'm going to shoot you, Quarry. I got a gun." And they're like, "Oh, I think he's got a gun. Maybe you should hide under the bed." And he's like, "Yeah, maybe I'll hide under the bed. No, maybe I'll go out there." Like it just felt like goofy, like a Monty Python scene.
Well, I think the hide under the bed thing was a joke, even in context of the story. But I also, I mean, not to make this about Simenon, but I also disagree. Like I mean, most of Simenon's, like, think about The Widow, right? Like the scenes in The Widow at the end when he kills the woman, it's very clinical. And then he falls asleep and gets drunk in the bar and he wakes up and the police arrest him. And that's it. Like, it's not super weighty. It's not super, like it's not written super dramatically. So, I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a bit of a misinterpretation of Simenon's style.
That's true. You're right. But, like, I don't know. Maybe it just adds to my thinking of just, like, everything has to fit together organically for that moment to be that bare bones in terms of description and work the way that Simenon can make it work, make a scene like that work. So if everything leading up to it doesn't feel right to me, and you're going to go for the bare bones approach, it's going to miss the mark for me. So I think that's what happened here for me.
Yeah, I liked the just the farce of the ending. Just like,
damn it,
drunk asshole shoots him for laughing because he's ultimately, just like a just like a crime of passion, honor killing in his eyes. He's a dumb asshole.
Riker just cucks himself.
Riker's spooked as fuck. He just is constantly convinced that, he deserves this kind of recognition, and his wife wants to fuck other people, and in a way that Riker himself is clearly an unhappy consciousness, right? He's aware that people don't like him, and it just makes him even worse, Yeah. He's like, fuck you. I don't know. He's like needy, but like mean, because he knows that he's just like a shitty person, but like he's doing everything in wrong to try. Like, he's not trying to remedy it.
In his head, he like has these set of rules that he thinks if he follows will make him a good person and make people like him, and he can't totally understand why he isn't liked and why it's just like not working out for him.
Yes, Riker. That's a great. We were trying to pinpoint a little bit of Riker's issues, and like the one of them is, yes, he's a dogmatist, but because he needs rules, or he would be. I mean, he's still like disgusting. He's just drinks to excess, and he rapes his wife, and and he needs those rules about Christian marriage in order to expiate him of his sins, right? Like, he's just looking for this rule book by which to then be able to like misinterpret so that he can keep doing the shit that should just be disallowed. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
so
he
he
should
can,
not be
like,
allowed to do it.
So he can feel comforted in the behavior he already holds.
Yes, exactly right.
And and exploit his behavior also.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He was gonna do all this dumb shit and be bad anyway. And he also has a moral system that he doesn't believe in the content of, although he knows all of the rules technically.
Which is like the scariest type of person that is in any
100%
religion to me.
100%.
That type of person, someone who's just like, like an empty vessel. But they have aspects of their personality. that like line up.
A what?
There's a boss in Hollow Knight called the Empty Vessel.
No way.
Yeah, no, dead ass.
Cool.
Well, it's also a little bit Rust Cole of like anybody who needs a god to, to not be a piece of shit is I want them all rounded up and whatever. I forget what his fucking shit is, but however hilarious Rust Cole is, like that at least I think is somewhat true. Like, yeah.
Well, yeah.
The letter
I
of the
agree.
law, if not its intent, is kind of Riker's whole deal. Thomas is just some sort of like, just pie in the sky. Again, he doesn't like reality. He's in it for the fucking mythology. He's excited about
he likes
lore.
lore.
Yeah.
He loves the Old Testament.
He loves lore. He doesn't love cleansing actual like open sores and building like a lavatory for people to actually use in the world. You know what I mean? To like, he's not into that stuff. I think the book is trying to gesture again at like at this agnostic Catholicism that I'm latching onto as Greene's own, like self-description. Like, and I genuinely think Colin is that. Like,
so you don't think Greene is Query? You think he's Colin?
He's Colin. Yeah.
Okay, how come?
I don't know enough about Greene to know, but my guess was that he would be like both, a little bit of both.
I mean, like any book, right? Like, the whole like blah blah blah. It's pseudo autobiographical. Like the extremities of myself are played out in these characters or whatever. But I think
like
Colin,
J.R.R. Tolkien is or J.K. Rowling. No, who wrote who wrote?
Very different people.
I was gonna make a Peter Dinklage joke, but I forgot the name of that guy.
George
R.
George R. Martin. George J.K. Tolkien.
Might as well be motherfucking.
Yeah, what
all
the
that
fuck?
shit's...
Get a different name.
Dude, fuck that. I'm gonna make you guys read a Game of Thrones book for the show.
I've read 3 of them.
Okay. I've never read it. I've only seen the show. I want to read the books.
Come on, man. They're not
They're
even
pretty
done.
good.
I don't want to. Yeah.
Well, I've come around to Matt's point of view about those books. Like Matt's like, I'm not gonna start them if they're not finished. And I kind of
if he doesn't finish the series,
I stopped reading.
That's a cringe attitude.
Nah.
I mean, they're so long that it'll take you forever to get. And maybe by the time you're done with the 5th one, he'll come out with the 6th one. I don't remember which one he hasn't released yet. I think it's the 6th, and he's got 2 more to go.
Dude, I think what Martin is doing is basically it's like that John Cage piece that he started writing and is never going to finish on purpose. That he's been writing for like.
At this point in his career, he's doing the like 34-minute composition
Well,
where the room is making all of the composition.
Right. Well, no, Cage has a piece. I forget what it's called. It's called like starting points or like where to start or something. And it's like he purposely started it and is never going to finish it.
Where to start and not.
Okay, that's not what Martin's project is, though, and
it's not.
That's
That's my reality, dude.
It's just fucking knights and shit, and he just wants to write the full story, and he didn't.
Yeah, it's because he just eats pizza at night and jerks off instead of writing.
He's writing for fucking video games at this point. He's not even trying.
Yeah, he's not even trying.
Oh, you wrote the lore for Elden Ring? We still need 2 books.
I'm a millionaire now. I can buy 20 pizzas a day.
But I do think Colin is a bit of the like authorial insert. If I'm like, because
I feel like Colin's not conflicted enough. Like I feel like
he's
Greene,
not. I don't think Greene.
I don't know. I feel like Greene's more conflicted than Colin is.
He's playing out all of the horrific shit in the books for sure, but by an insert I mean, as always, like a kind of idealized where you think you stand subjectively, but that's not maybe necessary. That's not like the truth necessarily, right? Like bordering on a rationalistic view of religion. You are, Greene was like, again, like he was an MI6 agent. He was sent to all these outposts personally. And he's also was, I believe, happily married till the end of his life in his like 20s. And Colin has this very like dedicated relationship to his deceased wife, and I just think the signs point to that for me. But I don't know. It also seems like Greene has been also, because we had The Power and the Glory is the only other thing I read, and that's like a decade prior or something. And like the same issues still seem to be what are cropping up. Like, I don't know how much he's progressed. If you were just like a genuinely like a Catholic in like some sort of, I don't know. It's like, especially in the context of like the British Empire and dealing, thinking about your role in it. I don't know how much he's answered the questions he's posed in his books.
I don't think that's the goal necessarily.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Sorry, but I did want to ask the question of like, do you think Query learned, or do you think Query learned anything? Do you think that Greene set out to have him learn anything, like have an arc or anything?
Well, at the end, I mean, Colin says that he thinks he's cured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple times. And I think, like we said earlier, or someone mentioned, like that word cure comes up a ton in the book, obviously in the context of the leper colony and stuff, but also in the context of like, people's just subjective feelings and sort of needing to be cured of their, whatever. I don't know.
Dudes will literally go to remotest Africa instead of go to therapy.
Yeah, he basically went on like a sex addiction
retreat
rehab facility.
It's like, what if they were all ugly as shit?
Yeah, that was his. That's the real Joker-fied thing. Where can I be in the world where everyone's ugly and I won't want to fuck them?
Where's everyone an unfuckable uggo? Oh, right, the leper colony.
Leper colony.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, in some ways, I do think he was a little bit, quote unquote, cured. I really do think he had no intention to do anything with Marie at all. I think
No.
I think you could argue that, well, like, subconsciously maybe he did. I mean, he agreed to take her to look without telling Riker, and he ended up staying in her room for quite a long time, telling her a story. Like, I think you could argue that there was some subconscious.
The closest he got
going on.
was he told Colin that it would be easy.
Right.
He bragged a little bit.
Oh, he did? I don't remember that.
He was like, I could. He just says that. He's like,
It's like
and he's
something
like, you're.
Drake would say.
Yeah, he's like, you're.
Celebrity
I mean,
fuck.
Riker's more like Drake.
Yeah, true.
I'm just
Riker is
picturing Drake
and Marie is
I'm
Millie
just
Bobby
picturing-
Brown.
Yeah, yes. And I'm also
Ew.
picturing Drake in a red Starfleet #1 outfit uniform.
And he's
God.
Wow, mashup culture.
Yeah. Girl talk.
We'll talk Drake.
But it did seem like what Query needed was a retreat. Like, I didn't get the sense that his particular malaise was terminal. I do think, I did get the sense at the beginning that he was suicidal, not in the straightaway slashy the wrists down the road, not across the street kind of way, but like
This podcast does not condone or endorse.
of course
suicide.
not. What the fuck?
And we're not
I'm
giving
just-
advice on how to do it.
All right. Well, anyway. But
Head in the oven.
but he ends up dying, and that was always the impression that I got, that did broadcast itself to me at the beginning. I was just like, this man is dead. Somehow, some way, he's dead.
See, I have an issue with him dying, actually.
Okay.
I was thinking of Gatsby, and Gatsby, to me, feels doomed to die. And his characterization points to his death continuously, and he almost gets worse
Mhm.
as the book goes on. It felt like a build up towards it. But this book seemed like kind of a shot to the groin area, because I did feel as if Quarry was learning and progressing. So it made me feel like at the end, like, what am I supposed to get out of this? This isn't a character that seemed like they were doomed. So what does his death mean to Greene? Mean to Greene.
I mean, I think that's like maybe that's like the ultimate kind of nihilism, right? Is that like you can be improving and sort of making progress and dealing with your demons and whatever, and then you can just still die and it doesn't fucking matter, right? Like it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like
that's why
Query. It's a way of kind of again pointing out Query's performative nihilism in the fact that like he didn't, really want to die in the sense that someone who actually kills themselves might, you know what I mean? But he does anyway, and it's that kind of like dumb, like we were saying earlier, like it's just like this dumb drunk idiot winds up shooting him, similarly to Gatsby, because he thinks he fucking although in Gatsby he thinks he killed his wife, but in this book it's because he thinks he fucked his wife, and none of it matters. Colin goes back to treating the lepers. He's buried in the fucking leper colony cemetery like he wanted from the beginning. And shit just goes on, It just realigns and keeps moving.
But I do think Query was the one like bit of wiggle room to just like, and so it goes kind of didn't matter. Is the characterization of why it happened at all, which is like Query essentially seemed to me to just need some grounding. Like he just wasn't sure, he was a celebrity and therefore he, it's like Boo-hoo, right? Celebrity fame, you get a ton of pussy and you make a ton of money and wow,
your life sucks, man.
Pretty dark stuff. But it does cause pain in people, I guess, and like depending on who you are. I don't know, I mean.
No, I'm laughing because I thought of something before the podcast that I wanted to say.
What's that?
It's a spicy take. I think that celebrity depression and pain is less important than almost any other kind.
Dude, 100% agree. I 100% agree.
Good, I'm glad.
I don't
mild
give a shit.
Mayo take.
Dude, I don't give a shit. If rich people's kids kill themselves and shit, I don't give a fuck.
Wow, that was worse, way worse than what I said.
Damn.
But I also agree. So I'm with.
I have no sympathy for anything bad that happens to a rich person at all. In my view, rich people cannot be depressed. Rich people can't be depressed. I don't give a shit.
So there you go,
of, like years ago, like many years ago, I remember Owen Wilson in the news, tried to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a clip of a guy who got fired because like on live TV and the local news, he just started laughing like uncontrollably because of that. And it was terrible to watch, but also very, very funny that he was laughing at someone's depression. And
I would say that
attempts.
this book strongly disagrees with that notion, though. Just like,
yeah,
like
no, rich people can be depressed, but it's stupid and funny.
Yeah, that's true. That is true, and
I mean,
that's part of what
real pain. But it's not as important as a poor person that's depressed.
Well, and I think I think Greene actually gets that. Like, he talks about sort of I don't know if I underlined it, but there's a few lines at the end, towards the end, where he's sort of talking about like, this rich famous person who's depressed dies, and then like the next day all the poor lepers still have to line up to get their fucking meds from the white doctor. And it's like
he contextualizes
their
it.
Shit still fucking goes on, and it's way worse than this guy who just got killed because someone thought they fucked his wife and he had $1 million in the bank.
Yeah, Greene definitely like, again, like putting it in this place where all these people have this this highly stigmatized, like horrific disease is, I think that's one of the functions is like,
Yeah.
you know, Query is obviously put in his place. Like he comes there, he has nothing, he's depressed, he's a burnt out case, he doesn't care about anything, fucking who cares? But he still, I think the hints were he still does shit, and then he's like, dude, dude, I'm sorry, it was a bitch made move to go help Dio Gracias, but I just did it. I don't even give a fuck. It's like, no, you know, not everyone would have done it. Father Thomas wouldn't have done it. He's afraid of the dark. He's a coward. You know, he still designs the hospital. Functional, good thing to do, a good use of your knowledge and skills. And that's why he starts to claim that he's happy. And he just needed to get away from, like, again, Joker fucking society, people blowing smoke up his ass and making him, you know, again, just sort of like boohoo, like confused about whether he really loves somebody or not or whatever. Like it's such a that was my thing, is just like it's such a common if you're like depressed, I find depression God damn it.
Go off, King. Go off.
I think depression tends to be something, as someone who suffered it myself, in the camp of the malignantly rational. Like, you always feel like you're in the right when you're sad, and it's incredibly egocentric for that reason as well. I think when I found myself in those states of being, it was like, this is the truth, I'm seeing clearly. But it's also because I can rationalize that nothing matters because, you know, we're fucking marble floating in the void.
Did we lose Matt?
Like this other stuff.
Oh, he's back. Sorry, you froze for a second for me, Matt.
You froze, Gabe. Oh, I froze?
Yeah, I think you froze.
We all froze. Maybe.
Oh, dude, did that audio come through at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But to respond, I think that an element to that also, and an element to Query's mindset too, is the element of depression being romantic too. I think that he thinks his whole departure from his life and from Europe,
big gesture.
It's a big gesture, even if it's just for himself, and he does really just want to be alone. It's like weirdly romantic, and I think that weirdly ties into the theme of love. Like he desires love, and I think maybe the only way he can comprehend that is through himself. And in this moment in his life, it's through his depression and his escape.
And he doesn't trust others because like his big fucking like crisis is precipitated by people attributing qualities to him that he doesn't have, and he doesn't like that. And that's mostly done in the extreme through his celebrity. Like that is the whole crisis. And then like, you know,
it's such a funny crisis.
I know, it's like we've heard it a million times.
Like hitting the paparazzi camera and then just like eating hamburgers and out.
Or like Russell Brand being a famous British philanderer and drug addict who, you know, now he's like, what does Eckhart Tolle tell us about groundedness and, you know, how to it's just like, you know, I don't know. So that were some of the eye rolling stuff.
Show, which I
Brands?
I'm pretty sure. Maybe I saw it on my YouTube, and maybe it was like a weird, funny mashup someone made. Because I don't think Russell Brand would even invite him on. But
if he did, it's just he must be in the fucking grifter. This is just the content.
The dark
phase.
web of the internet. Yeah. What is that? What is the Joe Rogan thing?
The intellectual dark web.
Intellectual dark web.
Oh my god.
Fucking stab me in my.
Like they're all Sith lords on the internet.
They all paint themselves like Darth Maul, and they go.
I have a red lightsaber. I have a red one.
Is yours double-sided? No, I decided not to do that.
Yeah, mine's Occam's razor, but it's a lightsaber. Logic.
Mine's red, but it's more like a maroon.
So I don't know. You know, I think Query is at once a little bit of eye roll inducing in some of his like motivations and stuff, but as far as the book, like, kind of meaning anything, or what Greene might hope to have explored and in some way made progress in inquiring about, is just sort of a a state of tension that's tenable, while still, I think, being a, if not Catholic, then Christian.
Well,
Because I do think he's a man of faith. I do think Greene is like he wants that guiding light in his life still. That's my
I think
take.
that your take too earlier about Greene being more like Colin, and Colin having kind of the Darwinian viewpoint of life, but also having this ounce of belief in Christianity and like the good overcoming possibly in humanity's existence or whatever. I think that kind of works well with Gabe talking about, like, it is a really sad nihilistic ending that the main character, Query, ends up learning maybe a few lessons and growing, but still the world and nature and just the circumstance of where he is ends up leading to his death. And I think that is possibly more tragic than the Gatsby ending, because Gatsby felt like more of a organic lead up to a death, and this felt more random, but in that way it becomes more tragic. But there is the element of the weird element of hope and goodness in Corey's character, like him going into the jungle to, I forget his name, his servant
Diogratius.
Yeah, and just like having a really good, wholesome moment with him, just trying to be a good person, and that shows his change. And
Great Gatsby is a darker book than this in its conclusions, in my opinion.
I think
Not
so.
darker, but maybe more nihilistic. Less answers, more like this way leads to death, and that's sort of what Fitzgerald's book, at least that one, was to me a bit.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like this is kind of dark.
no,
Darker, I think, not than this.
Yeah.
Gatsby.
I mean, I do think that at the end, Colin talking about Query being cured and all that stuff, and that he was sort of on the right path or something like that. But at the same time, there is that sort of like nihilistic final moment with Colin and the Superior, where they're kind of looking over Query's grave, and they're just kind of like, I mean, I have it. I'll just read it. This is from the end.
Yeah.
So, the Superior, this is the Superior and Colin sort of standing over Query's grave. The Superior said to Colin, "I can't help regretting that I wasn't here. I might have been able to control Riker. Something was bound to happen sooner or later," Colin said. "They would have never let him alone." "Who do you mean by they?" "The fools, the interfering fools. They exist everywhere, don't they? He had been cured of all but his success. But you can't cure success any more than I can give my mutiles back their fingers and toes. I return them to the town, and people look at them in the stores and watch them in the street and draw the attention of others to them as they pass. Success is like that too, the mutilation of the natural man. Are you coming my way? Where are you going? To the dispensary. Surely we've wasted enough time on the dead." And
you're
like,
right.
That's just how it winds up. Like, Query's just dead, and it doesn't matter, and they have a few sentences of sort of trying to make sense of his life, and it's just like, I don't know.
Well,
I don't think there's
we've
much
wasted
there in
enough.
terms of an answer. Yeah.
The line "we've wasted enough time on the dead" is very nihilistic.
And I think that's the thing, is that Query was kind of dead from the beginning, like you said earlier, Matt.
Yeah.
I just don't believe that. I really think that he had a bit of a resurgence and enough moments to point to him. If he didn't die, he might have not been cured, but he might have, the retreat might have helped him out in his psychology. And it was therapy, a weird therapy session.
But I also think that last, what I just read, kind of suggests to me again that the book is like as much about fame as it is about anything else, because Colin says he was cured of everything but success, and you can't cure that because it follows you around and it infects the other people who sort of interact with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was Graham Greene famous at this point?
I was
I
actually going to
assume
ask
so,
that.
but I'm not sure.
I was actually going
Yeah.
to ask that earlier and I forgot. But like, yeah, this is like what you said, halfway through his career.
Ish.
So,
Yeah.
So I was wondering, yeah, like how much was he pulling from his own experience of being famous?
Just as a writer who seems very much to draw from like direct experience. There's a foreword to this book on just the literal like managers or whatever of the priesthood running the leprosary that he went to.
My edition doesn't even have a foreword, so.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, like, greatest respect to like this person. You know, everything else is kind of like
Oh, you
made
mean his
up.
little like letter?
His
at the
little
beginning.
blurb
Yeah,
where
yeah,
he's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, but the cheroot smoking is I stole that from the guy
Right.
that we all know what we're talking about. Yeah, I don't know. You're right. I think it's kind of both. I think you know there was some sort of glimmer of a hope for Query, but also I don't think that Green and particularly the characters in this book care a ton
right.
about it either. You know,
Right.
that's the whole point. Is like it's a piety, a useless piety to in their opinion, I guess, to just take someone they didn't know who kind of just fell on them and be like, oh, and dwell on it and the, you know, the spiritual like ramifications of it's like, no, you know, we still got to get like these, you know, water purifying pills and we got to make sure the fucking dynamos are still functioning. And,
Right.
you know, it's, yeah.
And I think
And
at the end of the book, you're still kind of left with that question that Colin, like you're still left with the question, who cares?
Yeah.
That's like the doctor's conundrum too, right? That's like a weird problem I have with the healthcare system in general, and I feel like it's been around.
Whoa.
Well, just like not the healthcare system, but like healthcare people, they get desensitized by the world they have to operate in, and it becomes more of a I don't know, just like an order of operations type deal.
It's funny. You know what I was thinking of? Actually, you just said that. It's Augustine of Hippo, right? So what is the Hippocratic Oath? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm a
the
doctor.
Hippocratic
I should
Oath
know
is
this.
named after Hippocrates,
Oh,
It
thank
was a
you, thank you,
Greek-
thank you.
a Greek medical guy.
Gabe is vaping, and it's not agreeing with him.
I'm good.
You gotta be able to handle your shit if you're gonna vape as much as you do.
Is that a hippo jewel? You get a hippo jewel, a big one?
Yes. But yeah, no, it's not. I mean, I don't know if Hippo has any connection to Hippocrates, but the Hippocratic Oath was named after Hippocrates.
What about HIPAA? What about HIPAA? Does that?
That's no, it's an acronym.
Is that a different thing?
It's a different thing. Yeah, I don't know. You know, like, right? Who cares? I think it's a theological question too. Like, does God care? You know, who cares? Does that matter if there isn't somebody who does? You know, that kind of thing. And there's always going to be this tension between your immediate fucking physical needs and the reality of the world and the kind of like rarefied ideas that you hold and sort of, you know, all the metaphysical and theological shit that you believe and trying to square those two in the face of the things on the ground, basically. And I think that's something, if, you know, Green is this like sort of globe-trotting, you know, British MI6 agent, like he must have seen it and then as a Catholic been like, what is this fucking like? That's probably at the sort of like moribund end of the whole, you know, empire process. He must have just been like, damn, what does this mean? How do I square this? What have I done? You know, how do I square these things that I believe in what I've seen? Which is super interesting. I think it's worth reading more for that reason.
Da, da, or no?
Da, da, da,
Yeah, we've been going for a long time.
da,
but, yeah,
da, da.
Before we get there, I did want to say that
Train singers.
I did want to say that Thomas.
And
I
I am a
was picturing
tenor. Gabe is a baritone. Oh, damn.
Actually, our friend
Brush the
Taylor
cobwebs
last weekend told me that he considers me the third best singer out of our friends group, and I got really upset. But I'm like, after hearing you guys sing and hearing your backstories about being in choral ears,
Bags.
it's like, all right,
Origin
I'm not
story.
even trained, and I'm in third place, so.
We only have 4 friends, though. So.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you shouldn't have said that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There.
I'm sorry. You're smoking some copium, though.
You're basically the query of the singers in our group.
Thomas is Peter Pettigrew. I'm just going to say it right now.
Yeah, let's call them characters.
All right, you know what fucking time it is, y'all.
Yeah. We just read another book.
Literally.
And you can't be mad at us for doing Harry Potter. Another famous British author, J.K. Rowling, who we all unproblematically support and love.
J.K. Tolkien.
J.K. Martin Tolkien.
Yeah. So, we don't have a
Fellowship
ton
of
of
the
characters.
Goblet of Fire.
We don't have a ton of characters to work with here, I would say. So,
Yeah, 3 or 4.
maybe it'll, blitzkrieg through this.
Riker. What house is Riker in?
Hufflepuff.
Slytherin.
Slytherin, dude.
Are you kidding me?
He's in for his selfish gain, and every move to like educate himself and everything he possibly could do is all in the service of his own ego.
Justifying his own shitty behavior.
Yeah, even his faux honor killing crime of passion thing. I didn't even believe.
Dude.
Yeah, he shot him pro forma.
Yeah.
For laughing. Guy sucks.
How dare he laugh at me? But he didn't even believe it.
He didn't
just
care.
did it because he knew you could. That's something you're supposed to say.
Castle doctrine.
Exactly.
Okay, you're right. I'm going to
Stand
say
your
Slytherin
ground.
too.
All right, so we all agree Riker's Slytherin. What about
Slytherin.
Marie? Marie Riker, the wife.
That's tough.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
She's definitely not loyal to Riker, right? So loyalty is out of the question.
But she's
so
kind of
that's
loyal
out of the question.
to Query in a weird way.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
but
still go Puff.
What's the definition of loyal, though? Like, you can't be loyal to multiple things. Isn't
I'm
that
actually gonna say she's Ravenclaw.
Why?
Okay, because she wanted to get out of her situation because she wanted more out of life, and she was sort of inherently curious in a way.
No, she wasn't. She was a dum-dum about Query's story that was really boring. It was basically about
No,
his
what do you mean
life.
she was a dum-dum? She said
She
at
was
the
like,
beginning.
oh, I wish this was like more simple and it was a parable.
No,
She's
she
like, "Are you
said,
done
no,
yet?"
what are you talking about? She says, I don't like parables. And then she calls him out when he's telling her
Or she
this
was like-
bedtime story that's transparently his own life. And he goes, the guy in the story is a jeweler. And she's like, don't you
I'm a
mean he's
jeweler,
don't you mean he's an architect? Which is Query's profession. So she
We're
saw
both
right through it from the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, anyone could. It was the dumbest story ever.
Okay,
It
but
was-
it's not
that
evidence
whole
that
scene
she's
was stupid.
But I'm saying it's not evidence that she's a dum-dum.
I think she's a little bit of a dum-dum, and I don't give her enough curiosity points to put her in the Ravenclaw house. I think that she
That's your
has more
prerogative,
dum-dum.
dude.
I think she has more.
Are you saying Hufflepuffs are dum-dums?
Not all of them. No,
But you also
I
said
think
she's not loyal. So what house do you put her in?
that's true. She's not loyal. I put her in Slytherin. I think that she lied enough to show her true colors, and she knew that she was wrong when she was lying, even if she was traumatized. So I think that she disregarded her moral compass in a way that a Slytherin would, and I'm gonna put her in the Slytherin house.
Okay.
I'm gonna put her in Slytherin as well. Not because she's bad, but because she's also Gabe's mad. Gabe's malding. You guys are both jeweling.
I'm a jeweler.
I know he's drinking like an honest person. Well, Gabe's drinking too.
Me too.
Fuck. Yeah, I think she's a Slytherin.
Why?
Because I don't see. I think she's also self-serving. I don't think it's for reasons that are you can't be sympathetic to. Like Riker is obviously more evil, but I still think she is just sort of pragmatically trying to get out of a situation. I don't see a lot of loyalty. I also don't see a lot of curiosity. I see an open door that she saw.
Right,
Yeah,
fair
like
enough.
Gabe, you said that she was maybe loyal to Query, but she
I said
wasn't.
maybe.
She
I
fucking
said
threw him
maybe.
under the
You're
bus,
right.
dude.
Yeah, I didn't put her in Hufflepuff.
Yeah, to be fair,
I'll
she's
calm
not
down.
a pup.
I'll take it down a notch. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you have me on your side too. He's like it's majority Slytherin, dude.
I'm sorry.
I'm sticking with Ravenclaw.
Well,
Okay, what about Parkinson?
damn, he's Slytherin.
This one-
isn't he?
Obviously Slytherin.
I'm a little
He's
jittery
Slytherin.
on this one.
You what?
I'm a little jittery on this one.
What's going on, big guy?
That was a Parkinson's joke.
Oh,
Why?
God.
What'd you guys put him in?
Slytherin.
Easy clap.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Slytherin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
that
that
was
was- yeah.
obvious. Thomas. Father
Snakes.
Thomas? Huff. No.
I'm gonna say
No.
Ravenclaw.
Slytherin. He's Slytherin,
Ravenclaw?
dude. He's
Yeah,
Slytherin.
he loves history and lore of the New Testament God. And
No, but but his personality though.
He's a coward. He's Slytherin.
I'm gonna say Hufflepuff.
Is everyone in this book fucking Slytherin? Yeah, he's Slytherin.
No.
No.
Colin
He might
Ravenclaw.
be Puff.
I'm gonna say Hufflepuff. No explanation.
For
That's my final
Colin?
answer. For Thomas.
Okay, Colin.
Ravenclaw.
Gryffindor.
Gryffindor.
I changed my mind. It's Gryffindor.
Final answer.
Yeah.
All right, Query.
Colin is Giga Chad.
Yeah.
Query. Ugh.
It's a tough one.
Hufflepuff.
He might be a
Ooh,
Puff.
why?
But he's not loyal. I,
Why?
mean, I know we keep harping on loyal. It's not the only
I think he's a
characteristic of
Slytherin.
Hufflepuffs. He wants to be a Slytherin real bad.
Yeah, he's not. But he's
But I don't
also
think he
he also
is.
says who cares, so he's not a Ravenclaw. He has no
just
interest. What he is he's overly loyal to certain ideas in his head.
No, Colin says who cares, dude.
I just thought of the end of the Social Network, which is so cringe to me when the girl's like, "Mark, you're not an asshole. You're just trying so hard to be."
That's Query, dude.
That's
that
Query.
Query?
That is Query. That's a
fucking Query.
perfect
That's
summation.
it.
I think he's
So-
Hufflepuff. I think he's very loyal to these ideas and that's why they paint him so hard. Like he can't let go.
He's spooked. What's
He
the most
is.
spooked house?
Huff.
I don't know, dude. I feel like
Could be
we
Hufflepuff,
Every-
just
could be
default
no.
to like people that are
Every house can
lame
be
is Hufflepuff.
spooked.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be. Spooked.
No, because people can be really great who are, I think a lot of the priests are also Hufflepuff. And I don't think that's painted negatively in this book, and I don't think it's a negative attribute. Right?
I don't know what he is, dude. I'm stuck.
Hufflepuff for me.
Paul,
Slytherin.
I don't think he's Slytherin.
'Cause I'm
He's
taking-
not committed enough to be Slytherin.
You're right.
This is so greatly troubling.
Is he a squib?
Hufflepuff. I'm gonna say Hufflepuff.
You can't say squib.
Squib.
That's not an answer. It's
Yes,
not
we
an
can. We
answer.
established
It's an
that
answer.
literally last episode that squib is a legitimate answer.
Yeah, in this episode, we established that you can be Peter Pettigrew and not be anything else.
I'm just gonna go with Hufflepuff. I think that's the closest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think when he was 6 years old and the sorting hat was placed on his head, he'd be fucking Hufflepuff.
Yeah, he would want. He would want to be Slytherin so bad. Though.
Yeah, he'd be like,
He would.
no. You'd see all his friends go to the other table. He'd be like,
Yeah.
no.
All right, fucking
And then he'd
scoreboard time, boys.
Be raised and start
All right.
making churches.
Dibs
for
not,
like a
Paul.
Hufflepuff.
I have to go
Oh,
last.
shit.
So Paul, you first. How would
Bitch.
you rate this fucking book, biatch?
Well, my initial scoring of the book was around a 2.5. But once again, the discussion raised that score up some points.
Raised the
I
bar.
still I think that thematically I missed a lot and you guys brought up some good points that I think we just the discussion overall really amplified clearly what Greene was trying to do in his thought process and what he cares about morally, and but I cannot shy away from the reading experience, and I felt like it felt like a cinematic book. I think that was brought up before, and Gabe, I think you initially said that he did write a lot of pulp type novels, the entertainments or whatever. And I felt a little bit of pulp writing in this, which I don't like. It's like I take it less seriously, and it just felt like a lot of the moments and a lot of chapters felt like rushed writing to me that didn't feel artistic or organic, or like his heart was in it. It felt like a little bit like a book of the week for a newspaper in some ways. But that doesn't disqualify a lot of the great themes and other themes that I liked in the book. So I'm going to say 3.2.
Right on.
0.
Nice.
Yeah, I enjoyed my reading experience. I think I liked The Power and the Glory more in my recollection of it. I actually kind of agree with Paul that these quandaries and these these reservations about Catholicism and being a Catholic, even by this point in Greene's own, I don't know. I baselessly, I say that I kind of agree with Paul that there's a bit of going through the motions happening here, a little bit. Like, it's just still like, God, I still don't know. Gotta write another book about like why I don't know what the right move is here for my life and for what I think and believe morally. That being said, I'm with Gabe in the sense that, like, dude, like, Catholic guilt, colonial writing, and the implications of that, and all the dimensions Gabe was describing, like politically, ethically, culturally and shit. Yeah, always super fun to read just in general. It's almost like a morbid curiosity for this time period and these things. And I think Greene is a really good stylist, genuinely. Like I think he's trying to contend with these ideas. And he's marinated on them, and he's, I don't know, it feels even though I just said this book felt a little like going through the motions, it's also a book written by someone who's very seasoned in self-inquiry of this type. And so, despite getting a whiff of that, I still think the things brought up are interesting, worth engaging with, even now. And I'm going to go ahead and say that this book gets a 3.57 from me.
Whoa.
Hello. Yeah, I agree with a lot of Matt said with what Matt said. I mean, I think that again, I try to separate and maybe this is something we could talk about on an episode where we just talk about general questions, but I try a lot to interrogate my own reading experience, and if I didn't enjoy reading something, I'm like, okay, well, is it the book or is it me? You know what I mean? And I most of the time fall on the side of it's me. It's some fault in me as a reader, some fault as me as an interpreter. Some fault in the historical time frame that I'm reading a book. And I think that this book probably has some of that in the sense that, we've talked about it, right? A lot of this stuff feels old hat to us. It feels it's been done. We get it. Catholic guilt, blah, blah, blah. But that's from our jaded ass 2021 perspective.
Right.
And I do try to not discount that, but counterbalance that a little bit in my thinking about this sort of thing. I did not have the experience that you had, Paul, where I just didn't enjoy reading it. I enjoyed reading it a lot.
Wrong.
Miss him.
I know, F in the chat.
He'll be back.
So
The T-shirts have already been made.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, by the same token, like Matt said, I also think that the themes are worth exploring. And again, I'm a sucker for colonial literature and this sort of thing. So yeah, I'm at like a 3.54. So like right around the same.
Right on.
Yeah. So
Nice.
I enjoyed it. It definitely will not be my last Green book, as you said it would be yours, Paul, which is,
And it still will.
I think,
be my last
sad.
one.
I don't think it's that. I didn't think it was that bad.
No, I'm just. It's not that it wasn't horrible. It's just that, like, the information I got about what else he writes about is like similar to this, and I'm not really that into colonialism, and the idea of just like regurgitating the idea of Catholicism and what it means to the author, and I mean, yeah. I'm not.
Fair.
Maybe I'm not saying the rest of my life. I mean, I'm going to live to be like 120. So.
Right.
Because Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm gonna get an
Nano
implant.
machines, Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yulalo.
Oh, God.
I'm gonna get a brain implant. I'm gonna get pec implants, and I'm gonna get butt implant and penis implants.
Massive freaky cock.
Massive freaky cock.
You're
Thank
gonna
you,
look like
Elon
something.
Musk.
You're gonna be walking around like a fucking Battle Angel Alita character. It's like- I have micro
die.
whip fingers that I shoot out and they cut anything. Nano whip fingers.
Josh, you getting Paul?
Holy fuck, that's for the chosen few.
I can't wait to be.
That's deep, dude. If you get
So
that
hot.
joke, you're officially invited on the podcast.
You're hot and we're in love with you.
Cool.
Well, thus concludes.
There it is.
Episode 35.
Is it
Dude, I
35?
want-
I think so.
You might be right.
I want Nicholson Baker to talk to us.
Well, just, email him.
That would be
dude.
awesome.
He's on Twitter hiatus right now.
Okay. Well, so email him.
Okay.
All right.
Matt's like, I want all these people to come on the show, and then he's like, makes me message them.
I'm afraid of talking
Cringe,
to anybody.
bro. Cringe.
Next week we have my pick, George Simonens,
Yep.
the cat,
The
which
The
I've read
chat.
already, but I love.
The
and I wanna-
chat.
Le
The
chat.
chat.
So
it's a
get
great book.
stoked.
I read it already, but it's amazing.
And if you
I'm
hear
excited for my
this,
friends to read it.
I'm excited to read it too, man. I love Simonon, and if any, should we gotta do the thing where we post so that people can also read along? I guess.
Yeah, I
need
gotta
to go
redo
do
that. Yeah.
But you
You
if
guys
you hear
are also
this,
allowed to post things on social media, by the way. Like
Very
that,
true.
For example,
You are right.
Yeah, you're
All right.
allowed to do that.
let's not fight. Let's not fight on air.
I'm gonna do it tonight.
Do it.
All right. So, good night and good luck, everybody.
This was
and thanks for
Firecrackers.
listening.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram and Patreon.
Over and out.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.